Hey, fantastic. Good evening, all. Welcome to another space with me, Kalu Aja. Of course, on our space, we're talking money, the economy, and personal finance. We're here every Sunday, 7 p.m. West African time. Thanks for joining, guys. Today, we're doing equities, we're doing Nigerian bank stocks. We're asking a very, very simple question. We're going to have a guest that's going to join us today: buy, hold, or sell, right? I want to talk about around those Nigerian banking stocks. Results are out. Quarter one results are out. And Nigerian banks have just come off a recapitalization exercise. So the bulk of them are flush with equity cash, ready to deploy. We saw some news last week about a major bank basically saying, hey, we're not going to pay dividends. We're going to get into that. But we want to just talk around the Nigerian banking sector, see what's happening there, then see what are the opportunities. We want to go bank by bank and say, do we buy, hold, or sell? Alumde is going to join us. Once he comes in, we are going to start, right? Again, guys, before Alumde is in here, we're just going to do our brief disclosures here. Let you guys know. Let me just do this. We're talking investments, right? But it's essentially, guys, keep in mind it's all educational. We're not ask, we're not your financial advisors. We're not asking you to go buy or sell anything, but we're basically just, it's educational more or less, right? So, shares are risky, past performance not a guarantee of future return. Just keep that all in mind, right, as you listen. So I'm going to also share, we're on YouTube. If you want to follow lots of visuals on YouTube, you can follow on YouTube as well. I'm also going to try to share the slides also on Twitter, so that way you can get a visual of what we're talking around, right? So I'm going to go into Twitter and share that. Our title is, of course, buy, hold, and sell Nigerian banking shares. And I hope the bulk of you are investors. Like I was talking around all week. Last week, we had last month was the World Financial Literacy Month, right? And we try to elevate the whole idea, the whole concept of investing, especially in Nigeria, especially when you compare investing with, say, gambling. So there's data that I saw, I think it was a few months ago, where the number of gambling stocks is about 60 million Nigerians have gambling accounts. 60 million. The total number of Nigerians have got a stockbroking account. That's your CSCS. It's about 600,000. So you're looking at 60 million Nigerians. These are mostly young folks from 18 to 35 years old have a gambling account. That you have about just 600,000 Nigerians are actually investing. And if you go into that 600,000 Nigerians are investing, less than about 300,000 are active, which means they buy and sell, active investors in the stock market. And if you go into that active stockbroking investment, guys, women are less than 5%. So it's a crazy, crazy number where we have 600,000 accounts, 300,000 are active. Out of that 300,000, women are less than 5%, right? But we have 60 million stockbroking and gambling accounts. So we got to fix that, right? We got to fix that and make sure that it's basically, we teach folks what is investing, how to invest right, and how to sort of, we say, look at companies and say this is a good investment for me. That's what we're doing today. So it's all educational. Olumide is here. Olumide, how are you doing? You want to introduce yourself? We'll get started.
Yeah, Carlo, good evening. Sorry for being a bit late. I was trying to wrap up some things. As usual, very interesting space to be in, and thank you for what you've been doing. There's no doubt you're one of the biggest platform providers in terms of personal finance on Nigeria social media, and over the years you've been consistent, and I think there are lots we can't take away from you. I just want to give a short story before I go on. Yeah, my name is Olumide Adishun. I'm a financial market writer. I cover different markets around the world. I also make sense of what is happening in investment more personally. So I don't just write, I invest. And I speak to stakeholders in different markets, try to understand the heartbeat of what is happening in the financial market space categorically. So I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. But for listeners, I think there are a few things I would like to highlight. First of all, we are not licensed stockbrokers. So what we're really saying is educationally. If you really want to go into the investment digitally, you have to go through a licensed stockbroker and investment bank. And you also need to understand that most of our analysis are subjective. We're using historical data. Things, past performance is not a guarantee of the future trend. So you have to be very careful. And I think for those that are on the space, there are a few things I want to say. If you've been on Carlos space since, I think after slightly, he has been consistent. I think 2023 when I've been active on Carlos space. You look back at the stocks we talked about, and you looked at the analysis. The evidences are there. It's a recorded space, so you could go back. You will notice that we're not perfect, but you will have gotten a high chance of maximizing good returns, and that's from the base of the fact that we give a balanced report. We don't pick sides. We try to tell you what the streets are saying, what experts are saying, what it means to the economy and things like that. So please, we're not trying to be alpha and omega in the space. We're trying to showcase what experts, what the market, what the climate is saying. So if you have problems with it, it's fair, but if you really want to make sense out of it, you're welcome. Thank you, Carl.
Fantastic, Olumide, fantastic. I'll put the disclaimer up. It's shared on Twitter, on YouTube. The YouTube is fantastic because the visuals are a lot bigger and they can comment, right? Olumide, let's go slide by slide. I think I shared the slides with you. Let's go slide by slide on what we want to talk about today. Like I said, let's just review the market, Olumide. I want to start with what we call the fugaz, right? The big boys. It's no longer fugaz again, but the big stocks in Nigeria, the large caps, large earners. Let's go line by line, Olumide. Let's get right into it. That's why folks are tuning. This slide here is talking about GT, Zenith, Access, UBA, and Stanbic Bank, one by one, Olumide. So Olumide, let's go. We're doing buy, sell, and hold, right? So pick the stock. I'm going to start with GT. Is it a buy? Is it a sell? Is it a hold? And do you want to give me a reason why it's a buy, sell, and hold?
You're putting me on the hot seat,
That's why you're here, bro. That's why. Yeah, I won't do it.
Because
that's why you're here.
But Carlo, to be honest, I think for a lot of people that are following me, they know that I own most of the Nigerian banks, particularly because I write about them. I try to understand their price action, get to feel the market directly. So I'm talking from not just being a writer, I'm talking from being a little stakeholder. GT for me is a old, definitely a old. The stock, everybody knows the beautiful job Shegun Agbaje is doing. If you look at return on equity, it trumps up the space. You look at the fact that earning per share, GT has always been high. You look at cost efficiency on board. But, it takes me back to the argument I had with my colleagues on High Street in the US, and it was like when Ruth Porat was at Morgan Stanley, and I was betting on Morgan Stanley ahead of Goldman Sachs. At that time, Goldman Sachs was more valuable than Morgan Stanley. And my argument was that Morgan Stanley is betting on wealth management, which is stable and often allow expansion at a long period. When you look at Goldman Sachs, they are the alpha and omega in securities, and if you look at securities, the market is at the US stock market is at all-time high, but you see that it has often been volatile, and unsurprisingly, you can see that Morgan Stanley has a higher market value than Goldman Sachs now, and you see that investors in the US treat Morgan. So the same thing with GT. I think GT, for me, people are the hype to me is too much, to be honest with you. Shegun Agbaje is a very brilliant man. He's the only CEO in Nigeria that is on the board of an American listed company. That's PepsiCo. That tells you that the guy is very brilliant. But if you look at it from the Nigerian economy, is GT really doing a beautiful job? That's another argument, because if you look at, are they really lending money to the real sector? You look at where most of the IGs are coming from. So it looks like more like an investment bank rather than a real structured bank. So yeah,
Interesting.
from an investor's perspective, definitely, I think I love GT a lot. I think many Nigerians, if you look at last week, the social media was painted orange, and that's because you saw dividend flying up around. So yeah, it's a very good bank to invest in. But I think Nigerians should also look at the functionality of a real bank.
Okay, and then just for the guys that are listening and not maybe watching, just listening, we have on the YouTube and the Twitter space, I've shared the flyer with this bank. So we're putting the dividend yield, which is what you would get if you're an income investor. So if you are an income investor in GT Co, right now, using the price and the dividend announced, your yield is about 9.4%. Then when we look at the total return appreciation, i.e. the yield plus the stock appreciation, you're at about a 26 to about 31% return on that GT stock. This is as at May, right? So May would be, say, April 30th. So again, the slides are up and they're going to be there for you. So we're doing total return, we're doing dividend yield, and the market cap is there again, right? So Lumide says GT Bank, he likes them in a way, it's a hold for him. Fantastic. Let's go to Zenith. Zenith Bank, 1 trillion cap. Run by a young lady that wants to make a name for herself, right? She's taken over like a really, really big bank from Jimovia, right? And she wants to, of course, stamp her, put her stamp on that bank and say, this is what I did. She started off very, very strong, right? The numbers I have here, dividend yield 8%, the total return 29%. That should be the highest of all these banks I'm looking at on this top banks. What's your take on Zenith? Do you buy, hold, sell, and what do you like about them specifically?
If you ask me this question last year, I'll say they buy. For me, it's a sell now.
Wow,
and
it's a
not
sell.
because personally, and I'm just talking from my own perspective, from the fact that if you look at what Cardoso is doing right now. He's trying to make our banks competitive, healthy, and he's trying to make them more transparent. And that's why you see that some banks can't pay in dividends, right? You look at the forbearance, look at the policies around forbearance, where now loans in the oil sector they've moved to category 3. The books are more transparent. Now all these accounting gimmicks are gone. And Zenith's exposure in the oil sector. Yeah, the bank is minting, but what I'm saying is sell right now is that I don't see the bank doing another 2x in the next 16-18 months. Pretty much my own perspective is from the fact that I think they still have a lot to do structurally. Yeah, the CEO, I think I've been following her when she was the DMD and she covered the Abuja operation. She's a very brilliant woman. She understands the bank. She has been Jimovia's top lieutenant for a while, so I'm not surprised that she's at the ends of her affair. But we have to look at it from an investor's perspective. Yeah, dividend is attractive, cash flow, but the price. I'm looking at the price. I'm looking at the market right now. Yeah, the argument is that FPIs will come in after the reclassification takes in the fourth quarter. But for me, I think I'll sell in the short term. I think I'll wait for a dip. I think the price for me is, you're looking at, if you're looking at price to earnings, you're looking at return on equity, you're looking at price to book. Yeah, it might look cheap, but for me, if I look at it from a technical action and fundamental action, I think I would really like to reduce my position in the bank.
Well, let me give you some numbers for Zenith Bank. 1 year, this is 1 year to date. Year to date for Zenith Bank, 107% year to date, 107%. 5 years, 489%. All time, 982%. PE ratio, that means how expensive the stock is. If you buy Zenith Bank today at 130 naira, which is the price of the market, it's going to take you 4 years. That's PE ratio of 4.9. About 5 years to get that money back. A PE ratio of 4.9. That's very, very cheap. Earnings per share, 25 naira, right? Dividend yield. So you still want to get out of this bank. You think this bank is overbought?
I spoke with you that for me, I don't just look at the accounting or you look at the stock metrics of a stock, particularly the Nigerian stock market. I look at different variables. Yeah, like I said, I told you that if you look at it from that angle, definitely the stocks have the value. Almost all stocks. If you look at the Nigerian stock market compared to other frontier markets, despite the fact that it's at a very top extended run, it still looks undervalued. But I'm taking at the technical action. I'm looking at the price action. I'm looking at the fundamentals in the Nigerian economy right now. I'm looking at the fact that we are in a place that it's more looking more like a consolidation. I'm looking at the fact that the things really pushing the stocks up. Looking at the oil sector, Seplat, Aradel, Brad, Dangote, Cement, and looking at it from all these angles. I think from a price action, I think market tacticians will tell you that it's definitely has to cool off. So I'm not saying it's sell because the bank is not fundamentally strong. I'm not saying it's sell because looking at those stock metrics you mentioned, there are no opportunities. But I'm looking at it sell because I'm looking at it how much bulk could I get in this asset with the present liquidity in the market, looking at the opportunity. Because see, what really pushed the market in Q1 was pension funds, right?
Yeah.
If you look at after pension funds from the end of March to it's been retail investors, young people now investing, but liquidity is a problem in our market, and that's why I was not so surprised when OP decided to list in the United States, because the average Nigerian, you need to understand that number of users in the stock market that push this market are not as much, and our investment community is still a kindergarten in the global market. So we just have to be honest with ourselves. So while the market, and you need to also understand that Nigerian banks are very liquid. They have the most efficient price efficiency in the market. So it's very easy to move.
So if I hear you, this is more of a reduce my holdings. I've made money. I'm So reprice.
I'm not going to sell exactly. I'm not going to sell. So, for example, like you mentioned earlier, I think for me, Zenith is an hybrid between a UB and a GT. For me, Zenith invest more in the real sector than a GT. Zenith is like a Bank of America to me, and I think for me, it's not a bank that I would want to put aside. But I'm saying that, will I buy more? I'd rather reduce my position. That's what I'm saying. So my sell is not for the fact that, I see the bank as a no-go. No, I'm saying that I'd rather reduce because I've been holding that asset. I think I bought more when it was 50 naira. And look at the price right now. So come on, you're telling me that I'm going to get a double on the price, right? I don't think so. Because look at 2024, capital FX gains that really push those things. I think they have evaporated. And look at what the CBN is doing right now around forbearance. Zen has a very strong position around the oil sector. I hope you are aware of that. And you look at the fact that some of these banks had to write, like First Bank had to write down their impairment. They had to declare impairment. I think somewhere around 46 billion, right? So that really affected our profit. So that's my problem with. So I think we just need to reduce our expectations on Zenith.
Gotcha. Let's go to Access Bank, Pan African. I think they just bought a Kenyan bank or something like that. Also Nigerian. They're all over the place. They're your quote unquote American Wall Street bank, but they are also in the trenches. Young guys that run them, good brand and all that. What's your take? Buy, hold, or sell for Access? Again, the numbers: dividend yield 9.6, pretty high. Total return about 23%.
I know you speak about the PE, return on equity and other metrics. For me, Carlo, to be honest with you, like I said, categorically, all these banks are still undervalued. But I think Access has a spiritual problem. I don't know. And one of the things they did that really caught my head up was that they had to reduce their results midnight. See, it's the biggest bank.
They are reporting tomorrow. They are reporting tomorrow, right? They're reporting on Monday. This Monday, they're going to report their numbers this Monday.
But Carl, you didn't see what they did. You didn't see what they did at midnight. You didn't see the report they did at midnight. You didn't see what they released at midnight.
Tell us.
So,
we're listening.
I don't want to talk much about that. I think it's already out there. But the truth is that we don't even know if they are going to declare dividend. had very good numbers. You look at it on paper, they had good numbers, but if you look into the results, it's not that impressive. And I think Access has a fundamental problem. And I think that's why I said that it looks more like a spiritual rather than a mathematical or financial market problem. First of all, I think the bank has done well in asset acquisition. You look at being aggressive about Wige, the late about Wige. Now we have AIG on board. The transition is quite smooth. Yeah, you can't take that away. But when you look at return for investors, the stock price from a technical price pattern, the stock had been having a ceiling around the 30 naira mark. And you look at the at some point, Wema Bank looks like it's going to outpace Access in market valuation. You get worried. So I think among the top five, for me, I put a strong buy on it because I feel like at the price.
Did you say buy? Did you say buy?
Yeah, strong buy for me. Yeah, strong buy for me from a technical perspective. So see, you can look at it now. If you are going to look at it from the book EPS, you look at it from return on equity, you pick Zenith ahead of assets. But if you are going to look at it from price action, look at fundamental, and look at the opportunities, the bank, if they can get their things together, then that's another game entirely. So it's a subjective argument, but I think for me, I'm going to put a strong buy. I think if they gather if they can clean the book, if they can clean themselves, they have more upsides. And I think also Access has made some strategic investments, and they still have a solid team. And you look at the management team, they still have a very solid team, particularly in their treasury side. So I'm betting that things will take in shape. So look at the price. I think loyal investors, but what a lot of people have been saying is Access has forever been undervalued. So
let me ask you just
maybe it's for their generation, next generation.
Off point question, right? So I saw Mr. Dangote praising Herbert Wike when nobody would lend him money. Herbert lent them money.
Yeah.
Do you think that would have a play when Dangote or their banking relationship with Access? Do you think that would be a play or factor in anything that we're talking about?
They're not permanent friends. Based on what I hear in the streets in the banking world, I think they're not permanent friends, particularly these billionaires. And I think right now, Femi and Tony has an advantage over AIG in terms of relationship with Dangote, and that's why I will not bet against it, Tony and Femi, with Dangote refinery taking shape and fertilizer, and that's because those guys are well positioned to tap into Dangote refinery and other exposure Dangote has. Yeah, Albert Wiki was a guy I loved. In fact, I had some of my friends in the top area of Access, and they had when Albert died, they were emotional about it, and I was like, guys, it's just. What happened? And they were like, this man really impacted in their life. So they had a direct relationship. I think Albert would be missed. And I remember when I said that Albert might have made a difference in the stock price. And a lot of people are saying, no, I don't think. The reason is, I think a lot of people get carried away with the accounting parameters around balance sheet, and they forgot that personalities also play a role in the market. You've seen that in the US stock market, you've seen that in the French stock market, you've seen that in the German stock market. So sometimes Albert is loved. Albert has a likable personality among the wealthiest, among young people, among entrepreneurs. So I think Access will miss that. AIG is quiet. AIG looks like a first lawyer. It looks like he's turned people say that his business, he goes straight to business, but he doesn't have the charismatic features of Albert. So that also might play on the stock. But I think Access is not a bank you want to bet against. It has a systemic role in the Nigerian banking industry. I think the price action, when you look at the last week and you saw that the fact that it dropped, I think I increased buying pressure on that. I think I'm betting more on Access than any of the top and UP, which we'll talk later about. The reason is because I think that there's room for growth.
All right, let me give you a few numbers again. Year to date, 23%. Year to date, 23%. We just talked about Zenith Bank to date. You can see a difference. PE ratio 1.85. Very, very cheap in terms of the pricing. Dividend yield 9.26, one of the highest that we've talked about here. So, like you said, if you want to get in on the lower floors, it's a good bank to get in on. But like I heard you say, spiritual problem. Not sure what that means, but It is what it
It
is.
was
Yeah.
just a joke. It was
No,
just
I
a
hear
joke.
you.
Yeah, it was
I
just a
hear you.
joke.
All right, no worries.
It was just a joke.
Let's
Yeah.
jump to UBA. UBA. Last week it was all UBA.
Yeah.
Provisioning, no dividends. I heard their chairman on TV. I think he gave their MD very very nice the way he analyzed that we are still an income performing bank, but we are not paying dividends this year. The market didn't listen. The market sold down. Did the market make a mistake on UBA, Olumide? Is UBA a
Uh,
buy, sell, or hold on your in your book?
well, price action shows that it was an exaggeration. I think,
Buy the
you know,
market.
yeah, for me, yeah, because you look at the price has bounced back from its low, right? From the weekly, from that low. And yeah, you're totally right that a lot of people held on UPA because of the passive income, that's dividend yields. And the bank has been a bit consistent, has been quite consistent, to be honest. And, Tony has quite done a good job in positioning the bank at the Pan-African level. And you also look at the fact that you can't take away that UBA has a strong treasury. But, you look at the problems they're having and you look at the rules the CBN brought in. Like we spoke about forbearance, we talk about capital adequacy ratio, banks liquidity increase, capitalization, and the CP Cardoso now is not somebody that is moved by these accounting gimmicks. Now he really wants to have a solid banking structure that can really give money to the real sector. So because are the days where you can use FX gains, you can use different beautiful mathematical symbols to hide problems in the past. So I think when you look at the results, a lot of experts will tell you that it looks like a one-off thing. And I remember when I listened to Rutu's interview with the CEO, he also affirmed that they are really going after defaulters. They've increased cost of compliance and also the reforms in that side. But I think why I say it was an exaggeration is that look at where we're coming from. For me, Kalu, to be honest with you, I don't really take most of this mathematical. Yeah, I try to know these things because I was taught, while I was a trader. I try to understand the metrics you mentioned, EPS, ROE, price to book, it's very important, but these things are subjective. And I think one of the things a lot of people understand, and I just want to give a short story. So there's this lady, she's about 28 years old. She sent me a DM, I think as far back as when we began. She said she was going to buy stocks because I was not a licensed stockbroker. I told her that I was not going to give her advice, but I told her to focus on stocks that she's comfortable with and she understands their business. And she should look at the personality of people behind. And she picked GT and UBA. So when the hell was let loose and she told me that she was going to buy more into UBA, and in fact she was one that spoke about that had a 20 million naira hit dividend on GT, so tells you how much she has been investing in Nigerian banks. And she told me categorically she won't want to bet against Tony, and that's what a lot of people will say. Because Carlo, if you look at January for example, I had placed a lot of bets on Zeblat when during COVID, and I think I was looking at it at 5,000. I think I'd done about 10x, and I was looking at the time that I wasn't seeing the Nigerian stock market. I wasn't seeing Zeblat doing 10,000. To be honest with you, I wasn't seeing Zeblat doing exceptionally well. So I felt like, man, this is the time for me to get off. But when Tony came on board, I was like, how Tony must be saying something I'm not seeing, because if you look at it from the account, you look at it that Zeblat is well positioned. At that time it was the most valuable energy company. They already acquired ExxonMobil assets. There were rooms for margins. The reforms in the oil sector was gaining momentum. Dangote refinery had changed the landscape also. So it was booming, but I wasn't seeing. So look at the stock right now. It tells you that he has loyal fans in the stock market, whether you like it or not. This is the only man, the chairman of UP. This is the only person, and that's why I'm telling you that one of the reasons why I'm going to place a major bet is Tony, and he
Tony
has
guy.
this market. He has this market prowess that it reminds me of James Diamond. That personality. One of the reasons why I buy into JP Morgan. JP Morgan does not have a fantastic dividend. When and they had issues even at some point with their security investment. People prefer Goldman Sachs than JP Morgan, but James Diamond understood that America was going to be like America needed to have a very big bank that could manage the likes of Google, Apple, Nvidia, and that paid off. And look at it now, that's the world's most valuable bank. So I think for me, looking at Tony Lunu's brain, he's not trying to be a GT where you look at the fact that he's giving a lot of high margins or look like an investment. He's not trying to be. I think he's positioned himself in a place that is betting the fact that Nigeria will become an industrialized nation in Africa. So you see that Pan-African link, positioning is in different markets, having different exposure. So I think I would want to hold you beyond that. But I think, like you said, investors were totally angry, partly not because they didn't give out the dividend. I think what happened on social media was the fact that there was some misgivings that the people that handled the UBA story did not do very well, not really about the result, because I think you look at MTN, you look at Nestle.
But let me, we're going to come specifically to UBA. I think I have a few slides on UBA. Because I want to talk about UBA in terms of how the market is reacting, how individual investors reacted to that news, and to see what can we learn as investors on UBA. So for UBA, if you give me your buy, sell, or hold, let's do Stanbic. We still have Wema, Jais to do. Then I want to come back specifically on UBA if you can, just because I think there are lots of learnings there, and to look at the story that the bank is talking about and see how investors can sieve the information from that story and how it then drives market prices, right? So for you, I hear you say UBA is a hold, or is it a buy? So is it a hold or a buy, UBA?
Well, I would say buy and hold because for me, when I didn't buy, I've not bought any stock this year until UBA. And UBA was, I felt like I was even expecting people to drag it lower so I could buy more because I felt like the stock was definitely.
You think it's a dip?
Yeah, I was thinking that the panic was going to push it below 40 naira, but I think a lot of institutional investors, because if you look at what triggered the price to bounce, you see high players coming in, and the stock looked like 40 naira was the support, so 42 naira, sorry, was support, so it bounced. For me, I don't think many of us that hold UP are worried about the present price. Look at the constant dividend. Like I said, I've been giving me constant this decade. I really depended on UPA, GT, and Zenith for passive income. And the passive income has been so good that I've been able to run my local activities from those earnings alone. So I think not having a bad year for me is not enough for me to burn the bridge with UPA. So definitely, like I said, Kalu, I would definitely pump up more if it drops below personally.
Gotcha.
But I think that is not happening because price look like it stop bleeding.
All right, no worries. I think I saw Tosin share her dividend warrants on
Can you hear me,
Twitter.
Kalu?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I think I saw Tosin share her dividend warrants, and it was major. Olumide, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Olumide, can you hear me? Olumide, you're muted. If you can hear me, you're muted. That's why you know.
Yeah, I think I've lost you.
You were muted, Olumide. You were muted a while back. But I can hear you now. You're still muted. Let me unmute you. I'm not sure what you're doing. Yeah, Olumide, I can hear you, but you're muted, so you have to unmute yourself if you can hear me or see me. All right, so I was just saying, that I saw someone share their Twitter, on Twitter, what they got from UP, and it was quite substantial. Olumide, can you hear me? Just want to make sure if I go to the next, if you can hear me. Why don't I take him off and add him again?
I think before Kalu gets back,
Olumide, I'm right here.
I think I wrote a story. I think I did a story about the fundamental
Maybe it's me that can't hear.
actions in Nigerian banks, and how Kadusu is cleaning up.
Okay, just gonna get back into the space. I think the space went down. Maybe the space crashed. So I'm going to go back into that space and do a new one. Guys, hang tight. I think our space crashed. So we're just going to do a new one. Buy, hold. Let's just go here. Give us a sec. So we're gonna come here, do a new space, start a space. It's gonna be buy, hold, or sell Nigerian banks. We're gonna call it 2, and then we're gonna start now. Hey guys, welcome. I think we lost the space. This is just I think we lost the space. Olumide, are you back? Sorry about that, guys. Looks like we lost the space, but I created a new one. We're just gonna continue. Olumide, confirm you can hear me, Olumide. Olumide.
Yeah, I can hear you too loud and clear, Tyler.
Fantastic. I think we lost that space. Space must have crashed, but we're back on now. Yeah, so we're back on. So we were just finishing off with UB Olumide. So let's go straight into Stanbic, right? Let's go straight into Stanbic. Of course, we know the story of Stanbic. In Nigeria, look at Stanbic. That pension asset that Stanbic has, to me, is just a force multiplier. They have assets under management and they're earning fees from this one subsidiary. The fees are consistent. The fees are growing. The Nigerian pension funds have got about 23 trillion in assets. Stanbic is a major player in that market. Apart from that, they also have their African, linkages. If you look at the folks that bring funds into Nigeria for FDI, FPI, Stanbic is either 1, 2, or 3. So what's your take on Stanbic Bank? Look, seeing all this, are they a buy, hold, or sell for you?
So, based on all the things you said, I think it's a hold.
Things are hold.
Yeah, but I think it's one of the best structured bank in the country. You can't take that, like you said. Until Peter Side did a very good job in building the asset management, and also look at how they've been able to spread their tentacles.
Yeah.
And one of the key advantages they have, a lot of people are unaware, is that their parent company is one of the biggest banks in Africa, Standard Bank, and that also gives them that leadway in terms of the foreign exchange market. In terms of, if you look at foreign investment into the country, FPI investment in the country, you can't always. Stanbic is always in control, and the affiliations with the South African brands like MTN, DSTV, MultiChoice, also gives them. So Stanbic is quite solid, Carlo, but this is another thing we need to talk about. So I think Stanbic is getting too big. It's getting too big, personally. Yeah, because it is one of the. You see, Carlo, another thing is that apart from investing, I use many of these banks. So over the years, Stanbic has been one of the fireproof when it comes to services. Like, you really complain about services, other services.
Yeah.
I think they're getting big now that sometimes, like, even to make transfers now.
When you say big, are you talking of customer service or?
Yeah, customer base. Yeah, okay. Customer base.
So they don't have enough. They don't have enough branches for the customers.
I can't really say about that, but when I say they're getting big is that number of people using them, for example. So I don't know, they've been able to, the service sometimes can go off. Like, if you look at the money market space, for example, there's nobody that goes close to Stanbic, If you look at, when you look at FX, for example, apart from Standard Chartered and Citi, nobody, In fact, at some point, they were placing Standard Chartered. So that's how solid Stanbic. I look at Stanbic IBTC Capital, they did an impressive job. In fact, I was making a gesture to my friend that I understand why Stanbic opening a stock brokerage account in Stanbic can be a bit off the limb, because they have a very grounded research team. Because when you read their reports, this is a bank. They have very sound people in their team. So it's a solid bank. But for the price, like where it's trading at, I feel like, I think I don't see much upside from there personally, maybe until, because right now you need to look at where the banks are heading to, look at where we're coming from 2024, 2025, looking at now. Are you saying banks are going? I don't think so. So I feel like, yeah, it's a bank that I won't sell, but I'll definitely not buy more into my audience. I'll definitely keep it at a wait and see approach.
Okay, yeah. So again, Stanbic. Let's look at the numbers for Stanbic overall, right? Year to date, 65%. So it's a bit higher than Access, but a bit lower than the Zenith Bank we've talked about, right? PE ratio is still about 6.4. So it's low, not as low as Access, but it's low, right? Dividend yield 3.94. I'm not really seeing anything there. If you look at their returns, total returns, yield plus appreciation, it's 19%. It's good, but not as good as, say, GT, Zenith, UB, or Access. So, like I said, it's a solid bank. They've got that pension thingy going for them. They've got the stockbroking thing. They've got the international exposure. But still, they were not in Fugans and all that kind of stuff. So, like you said, it's a good bank, well run. Their chairman, what it brings in terms of just the capacity to that bank is we can't measure it. So I like them as a brand. I don't know if I like them as an investment per se, but I hear you. Let's go now into we've talked about GT, Zenith, Access, UB, and Stanbic. I want to come back to UB, but let's go into into what we call maybe the tier two.
And you forgot First Bank, Carl. You forgot. You forgot. Don't let Femi get us
No,
arrested.
please do First Bank. I apologize for all the First Bank shareholders. Go for it. What's your take on First Bank? Are you a buy? Are you a hold? Are you a sell on First Bank? That this is a bank that should be number one forever and ever, right? I don't think I've ever seen. I don't know if have you seen any bank in any world where the number one bank for a century was eclipsed by new guys that came to the market. Like for instance, in America, we've got Chase, we've got Citi, we've got. Have you seen?
Yeah. In America, usually it changes. At some point, Citi was the biggest.
Yes.
At some point, Wells Fargo came in.
Good.
Now we have.
But do you think Rocket Finance can ever be number 1 to 5 unless they buy somebody? Or do you think in America there's Barclays, there's Lloyd's? Do you think a bank can wake up and become so? First Bank's an interesting story that they were Standard Bank. They were in Nigeria before there was a Nigeria, right? And they were here. I mean, the first shares I bought was when Standard Bank was selling their First Bank shares. That's the first shares I bought in my life when Standard Bank was leaving Nigeria and they sold their shares and it was First Bank shares. And now we can say GT, Zenith, Access, UBA, Stanbic. We should be talking about. But go ahead, Olimide. What's your take on First Bank? Go ahead, hit it.
Yeah, this is one of the. I even wanted us to. We should have skipped First Bank, but well, to be honest with you, like you said, First Bank is a systemic bank. They have deep exposure in the agricultural and industrial economy in Nigeria, and they have Femi has done an impressive job infusing capital. He has increased his position of the bank. You look at the price the stock is trading at very interesting levels. But when you look at the EPS of a bank collapsing from 18 naira in 2024 to 1 naira in 2025, 2026, you look at the fact that they had to swallow some for 6 billion naira payment loans. You look at what these guys, Zenith and GTA, are doing. Look at the expansion in UBA and Access. We tend to look at it that will Femi really break or bring the elephants back on top in Nigerian banking industry. For me, my bet on Femi is Dangote Refinery, relationship with Dangote, the fact that the man is aggressively putting capital into the bank, not just seeing the bank as a way to expand his businesses. He's just looking at the bank to bring in credibility, and the fact that he opened the books like they could write off those kind of loans. I think I was surprised for a businessman that has little banking experience. But to be honest with you, I think it's also going to catch investors a bit concerned that will they really scale with the competitive environment of the Nigerian bank landscape, because you look at each of the banks, they have their own 40. But for me, I would say a slight buy based on present price, and it's not far-fetched because I think that First Bank will definitely get off. Nigerian government, if you understand the story of First Bank, it's a bank that on paper, in practice, will not be allowed to fail. And I also feel that with the revamping in the oil and gas sector, First Bank will benefit from it. And also the agricultural revolution that is quietly being killed under this administration. I think that's another opportunity for First Bank. So, Carl, it's a bank I would not want to bet on fundamentally, but price action. The price is trading at right now. Why I say it's a style price. Price is trading right now. To me, I don't see any incentive breaking the ceiling I don't see it breaking the 18 mark ceiling anytime soon until those concerns are addressed. You look at it from a market technical action, look at it from a fundamental action. It's more of a gloom than a boom. So for those that are holding the stock, I think patience will be required. And for those that are betting more, I think they'll be looking more at the opportunities in the oil and gas sector.
Yeah, because again, only if you had said this, what you just said now, honestly speaking, could have passed in, say, 10 years ago. They were battling CBN, like you said. The whole board was removed. The whole board, the chairman removed. They had to battle their non-performing loans. They should have cleaned that up. So now, if we rank First Bank, if you take away GT, Zenith, Access, UBS, they are not going to be in that top 5, will they, in terms of market capitalization? They won't be there. They also won't be there in terms of capital that they have available to lend out. So I hear you say Zenith Bank, sorry, Dangote. But if Dangote says, I want $1 billion LOC, line of credit, can they do that? Do you think the bank has the capacity to say, hey, I'm just putting a figure in the air. What I'm trying to say is that
to no bank right now has the capacity. The fact that you look at the structure around forbearance now, the fact that oil major now, you can't really.
But a bank can go raise it. Like, I mean, if a bank like Access or Zenith can go to the market and say we want to raise $1 billion LOC on a what's it called, securitize, we're going to have a transaction, bring in other players from across the world, we're going to lead it, and we're going to give Dangote money because we are this bank, we are all across Africa, we are UBA, we are GT, we are Zenith. Syndication, they can do a syndication.
I know, but Carlo, has that happened?
No, I'm just saying, like, do you think...
Okay,
do you think...
Where did it come from? It came from AfriExim Bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
He came from AfriExim Bank, right?
Yeah.
And before AfriExim Bank, he came from ICBC Bank. You see, I think...
Let's look at that. Who are the partners of that AfriExim Bank in Nigeria? Let's look at it. AfriExim, that's Dangote. Who are the partners in that AfriExim deal in Nigeria? When they give, is it 2.5 billion to Dangote Refinery? Who are the Nigerian banks there?
I think I have to look at that. But
that's going to make my point. AfriExim, Dangote, yep, 2.5 billion. Let me see if I can read it off here, because AfriExim on the right, it was 4 billion. They gave Dangote 2.5 billion. Let's see if the banks are here. Arranged by Access Bank. So Access Bank arranged it. That was the arranger. Who are the other banks in it? If I can see this point I'm making. Let's see if they list the other bank. But the point again, I'm saying that Access Bank arranged it. So you don't have to have the money, but Access has that ability to go out and syndicate with other players and come in and lend to these guys. Do you think these other guys have the because when you're
I thought you were talking about liquidity.
When you go to Europe or to Wall Street and say I want to syndicate 2.5 billion, they're going to look at your balance sheet and say, who are you? You're like, who are you? Why should we partner with you? Why should we put you on a tombstone when we can be higher than you? That's the point I'm making. So if you're not a big bank in quote, market cap, or UBA is if you compare them to market cap and an American bank, they're not there. But UBA can say we're in all of Africa. We have branches all across Africa. Yeah, we're in China, we're in Dubai, we're even in the US.
Yeah.
UBA can say that. Access can say all over Africa. GT can say all over West Africa. Zenith Bank can say we're the largest $1 trillion bank in Nigeria. What can First Bank say that will make the Americans go, oh, okay, I didn't know that. That's just where I'm going to. Like I said, numbers are important, but the story behind the numbers also sort of sell the stock if it were. So for you, First Bank is a buy, sell, or hold. Let's get that down.
Yeah, I said slight buy. Yeah.
Slight buy. Okay. All right. Let's move to our next chart, Olumide, which is going to be, we have the other banks here, right? Again, we have Fidelity, we have Wema, we have FCMB, we have Jais, right? Fidelity, Wema, FCMB. Fidelity and Wema are two interesting banks for me.
Yeah.
They are like two, you twist this, those little cars when we were small, you turn the thing and just unleash them. They are moving so fast. If I was a Chinese guy trying to enter Nigeria, I'll buy one of these banks, either Wema or Fidelity, and just unleash them. And both of them, they seem to have the same ethos, same demographic standing, if you understand what I mean. They are using that demographic standing to then project themselves and punch above their weight. I think Wema was the best performing NGX30 stock. Wema, the best performing NGX stock. And Fidelity is the best dividend yield stock in Nigeria, TTM today. So both of them have got this attribute. They are fighting in Nigeria where they have bigger players, but these guys are really punched above their weight. Let's start with Fidelity Olumide. Fidelity, what's it for you? Buy, hold, or sell? I know you like their CEO, but buy, hold, or sell for you?
I think hold, because I bought most of their stocks when it was less than 5 naira.
Now it's gone up.
That's the trick for me right now. For me, they look too expensive for me. But if you look at it from the metrics you are considering, it's still very cheap. I'm surprised that the stores at some point, we look at their momentum, it kind of stalled, because at some point, Fidelity was looking like they were going to be into the tier 1 rank. But now I think the momentum has stalled. Ineka is a very brilliant woman, an introvert, quiet person, does the job. She has supported the SME industry. I always tell people that without Fidelity, there will not be a money point story. You need to go and read about the awakening of money points, and you need to understand the role they played in that business. So they have a lot of stories, especially in the SME space, and I think she has been able to put a mark. It's not easy for a female introvert in a space like Nigerian banking industry. Has been there for a while, and she still remains relevant. Don't forget, you have peers like Segun Agbaje, in that space. So I think for her, for the fact that she has been able to create that mark, investors are rewarded. I think she was one of the first few people. Fidelity was one of the first few banks that met their capital, raised money successfully, So we're not surprised. So I have a soft spot for her, particularly from an investor's perspective. But I think in the long run, we should look at the fact that the bank also needs to be aggressive on the things they look at. They acquired the Union Bank London license. For me, I was like a bit concerned that was that not too much they're chewing. I felt like they should have strengthened their Pan-African, but different strokes for different folks. But I'm very positive about their management team.
Okay, so the results are out tomorrow. No EPS yet, but results are out. In terms of their PE ratio, 3.9. Again, not an access, but it's still cheap, 3.9. Earnings per share, 5 naira. We've not seen it in the Zenith level, but it's 5. It's there. Dividend yield, like I said, highest in the banking sector so far, 10.5. I think it's one of the highest in Nigeria, not just the banking sector, one of the highest in Nigeria, 10.5 dividend yield. Now, if you look at their year-to-date performance, about say 6%, not a lot. But going back to what I said, Olumide, their all-time performance is more than 1,000%. 5-year performance, more than 8%. So that's basically what you're saying, that it was a fast-growing stock that is now act like a mature stock, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So is this a buy for you, or you say you just want to hold what you have?
I just want to 20. Hold, right now, I just want to hold.
You want to hold what you have at 20? Okay.
I just want to hold.
All right, let's go to Wema. I like Wema. Do you know why I like Wema? I like banks that pick something and stay with it. If you,
Yeah.
anytime I look at any app that comes out, they are associated one way or the other with Wema.
Yeah.
They have this online thing where Wema is the go-to bank for online banking in Nigeria. They've sort of used that online thing, tagged it onto a demographic thing, tied it onto youth. I saw them with Davido a few minutes ago, and I think it's paying off for them. They're a
Yeah.
bank that is punching, just like they're punching more than they're like France. Small country, but everybody speaks French. Everybody likes French pizza.
Can we are not small. France is not small.
France is a
Yeah,
small
bigger.
country,
Not bigger than
man.
America.
France is a small country. You guys are you
What
small
is a small
nyash.
country?
How-
What do you mean by small country? It's one of the most industrialized nations in the world. You look at, yes, compared to the population of America.
Not in America.
the
Your
biggest-
your economy is what? Let's talk about your economy. You have
I
strikes.
know,
You
but
have
if you look at the economy is bigger than the whole of West Africa and South
you
Africa.
can't compare
combined.
France with West Africa now.
I know, but I'm just telling you that, okay, if you look at it in the world, for example, it's in the top 10. And you look at the fact that these are the economy that...
Are they really? Are they really?
Yeah,
Let's do top.
they're top 10. You can
let's-
check it.
let's
It's in the top 10.
Top 10
That's not surprised. It's a
GDP
nuclear power country.
by
Yeah.
PPP. It's all old glory, man. France is all
all
old,
glory.
old glory.
They had-
List
before
of
last
countries
year-
by GDP PPP. Let me check it out. List of countries
I
by
know.
GDP PPP.
Before last year, they were the biggest stock market in Europe. Now it's been overtaken by the UK.
You guys are
yeah.
number 9. France is number 9. You have,
Yeah, so you see what I'm saying.
Indonesia is beating you. Brazil is beating you.
I'm not disputing that in future. Yeah,
Turkey
but what I'm
will
just
soon
trying to
beat
say-
you.
Yeah,
So,
but what I'm just trying to say is like, Carlo, when you talk about the French people, like they are talking about Malta or
Oh my God.
in Portugal, it takes people off the line.
Okay.
But that's another conversation. Yeah, but like you said on Wema, Carlo, this is a stock that sometimes I felt like maybe I could have just hit the $1 million mark with just Wema alone, because I remember this stock was less than £1. I bought Wema a lot when it was 80 kobo. As in, he was playing at 80 kobo for a while. I think what Moruf Hosseini has done, very good job, like you mentioned. They knew what was missing in the banking space. They knew they could not compete with GT, Zenith, look at the cost of capital, look at capital to income ratio, and look at many other metrics. So they focused on the fintech space, and I think it worked. Then Alat was a success story for them. Alat was a success story for them. So the infusion of capital from Baba Jebu also at the early stage helped the bank.
I don't think people know who Baba Jebu is, and I think when you just say, people might just gloss over it. Many of the folks on this Twitter don't know who Baba Jebu is.
I think a lot of people know Baba Jebu because
you'll be shocked
we
because
have more gamblers than investors in Nigeria stock market.
That's where I'm going to. Years ago, this is like more than a decade ago. I heard a banker saying that Baba Ijebu was doing about, is it 300 million naira a month? This is not a bank. Bank. He's doing, not a bank. What he's pulling from those, if you ask all these people on this space, those are Jajabotas on this space, you ask them, all those, when you look on all your mechanics, your houseboys, they all have Baba Ijebu spot. That little red box under a tree, under a kiosk, that's where they go to. Little red box. And the guy is collecting liquidity more than certain banks. So when you see Baba Ijebu to the bank, that's a material statement.
Yeah. That guy is the legend in that space.
So let me say you like Wema. It's a buy for you.
It's a hold.
It's a hold.
I never bought. See, to be honest with you, all the Wema I had, I bought them less than £5. Would you want me to buy them at this price? Hell no.
Wema is at 34 naira now. Year to date 66%. All time 2,000%. 2,000% all time. That's crazy, man.
I think I'll wait for profit taking. I'll wait for a pullback. Sorry.
Dividend yield not that high. So you know what? When we spoke about ETFs, and we said in Nigeria, if you want to buy a sector that you to just boom, small caps rise faster than the large caps, but small caps fall faster than large caps.
But let me make you laugh. If the Nigerian stock market is open and we have an efficient structure around market making, and American investors start looking at Nigerian stocks, I will buy Wema at that price. I'll tell you why. I think if you look at Wema and you unbundle a lot, you look at the valuation of Total Wave, OP, look at the valuation of Peak Invest, or this thing, you say the stock is undervalued. And an hedge fund activist like Blackman or the Elliott would definitely
I like that.
on that stuff.
So you're saying that if you take away alert from Wema, alert itself is as big as Wema.
Yeah,
then you scale it.
So I that's what I'm saying. Exactly. So for me, but we don't have that liquidity. We don't even have hedge funds that will do that kind of
very interesting.
So
very
we
interesting.
don't have. You remember the story? You remember the story of eBay, PayPal, and eBay. Look at what happened, and you see the return investors had on that. So that's another interesting angle.
Let me ask you a question. Flutter is going to get a license. OP is getting a license. Who are they targeting now? FCMB, Wema, Fidelity, or are they targeting Zenith Bank, First Bank? Who are they targeting?
Two banks I don't think, honestly, the big boys, cost of capital makes the big boys not have sleepless night. I think the biggest headache for Nigerian banks, and it looks like it's getting better for them, were the telcos, because they were kind of scared of MTN and it. But
MTN has sold its license, right? Has MTN? They've not left, right? They just sold the license.
They've not left, yes, to their parent company. But if you look at what is happening in Ghana and Kenya, I was a bit worried for Nigerian banks, actually. If you look at what's happening in Ghana and Kenya, how telcos are taking a strong bite in.
You don't think that can happen in Nigeria? You don't think that happen in Nigeria?
No, those cabals are too strong.
Let me give you a start, Olumide. How many Nigerians do you know? And you guys can answer. If you guys on online Twitter, answer this question. How many Nigerians by percentage do you think have ever, this is ever from 1960, have ever gotten a loan from a traditional Nigerian bank? Just give me a percentage. Olumide, don't answer if you know the correct answer. How many Nigerians do you know? What percentage of Nigerians from 1960 to say 2023 have ever gotten a loan from a traditional Nigerian bank? Give me a percentage. Give me a number.
I know. While they are waiting for that percentage, let me kill that card. For me, even my banks, they've been calling to come and take loans. I've never applied for a Nigerian bank loan. And the reason is not far-fetched. If you look at, for example, a European bank will give me less than 9%, and you look at the fact that
I'm looking for somebody's answering. No, it's not less than 1%, but it's you're not far. I mean, so it's less than 5%. So let me say it again. Less than 5% of Nigerians have gotten a loan.
That data has been long. That data has been
for long.
It should be lower than that. That data should be lower than that. That data, because our population is now about 224 million.
But the point I'm making is that if you have traditional banks that don't give loans, then you have a fintech, because loans in Nigeria today are from loan apps.
We have problem with some of these fintech, like,
because they're all punks, right? They're all punks.
Can you imagine some of them? You're running a financial service. Just imagine that.
You can't send people to go and harass people. Let me get the point.
Not even they're harassing Pascal. You are promoting gambling. Just imagine eBay, PayPal. You see how people are saying you should pop money on DraftKings, and just imagine what will happen to.
Yeah, someone got it 3%. Yeah, Olusein Ugo. I can't say your name. Ocean. It's 3%. You got it. That's it.
You could make the fact that young Nigerians, like the OP story, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of Nigerians were interested. Nigerians stuff OP. Like, if you do a survey of OP and Nigerian banks, don't be surprised Nigerians will pick OP.
But that's where I'm going to. That's where I'm going to. I'm making this point against you. Let me make this point, right? If you have a quote unquote a fintech that comes with a brand name like Flutterwave or OP, and Nigerians can open accounts with those guys and get their salary, and Nigerians can get a loan, personal loan from those apps. Nigerians won't bank with the big boys. They will bank with the OPs and the Flutterwaves.
I want to give you something, Kalu. This is just an open secret. You think that these guys Whether you bring them from, you see, there's one thing you need to understand. Bob Diamond, you know Bob Diamond now, they get former Baptist guy that bought into Union Bank. And you know what happened to Union Bank. See, there's one thing you need to understand about Nigerian financial industry. You understand? There are cabals and there are cabals. You see GT, Zenith, UBA, First Bank. If you like, if you like, bring your liquidity and polish your. If those guys don't give you access, if you don't have a room on the table, you're just going to best you can do is go to the
I don't know what room. I don't know what room you are talking about because I'm saying right now. Okay, let's talk data.
They're talking about. Are you talking about number of you?
I'm saying look at the data point you have today.
Users, for example, OPL has 40 million users, for example.
Okay.
I don't think Nigerian banks are worried about that. But what the top Nigerian banks are really worried about is their margins. You know.
No, there's a book called Blue Ocean Theory, right? And I'm thinking that the Nigerian banks are in a red ocean. There's a blue ocean out there. Look at what X is trying to do on X Money. Look at what X Money is trying to do. You have an app. You can monetize your app. It converts to cash. You can pay with your app, which is X. You can get a loan with your app. You can be scored via credit on your app. You can get a home, rent, buy with your app, i.e. this credit scoring, your social scoring becomes credit scoring. There's a blue ocean out there in Nigeria that called commercial loans, i.e. a housewife has a job. She can't buy generator. She can't buy blender. If you go to a Nigerian bank, you open an account, you bring reference, you bring passport. These guys online have opened 60 million accounts for gamblers. 60 million. So if you take that same model and you go to the working class Nigerians and you say you can have a checking and savings account on an app, you can deposit, direct deposit, you can do pension, you can get a consumer credit, not at 60%, real consumer credit, the way it works in America. You have a blue ocean right there that the Nigerian banks have not taken.
Nigeria is not America. Let me make you laugh. See, are you saying Standard Chartered wasn't aware when
they haven't done it? But they haven't done it.
Are you saying Standard Chartered was not clever when they bounced many Nigerians from there and they cancelled the bank?
But they are not going after that market. That's the point. I'm going back to this blue ocean.
Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah. But
they're not going after that market.
The you're talking about is not a high margin business.
Margins only are a factor if you're a traditional bank with branches, cars, diesel, salaries. A Flutterwave doesn't have margins the way a Zenith Bank does.
But I think Revolut changed that story, Carlo. What we saw in Revolut, they changed that story.
But they're making my point. So if a Revolut comes to Nigeria, offers that same service, because we just asked on Twitter, and the answer is 3%. About 3 to 4% of Nigerians have gotten a loan from a traditional bank. So if I come to Nigeria with that Revolut or whatever, and I'm able to open accounts, deposit credits, and give the normal workers, not loans to go and do, not these expensive loans these guys are giving a loan at, but a real loan, a 15% for 5 years. If I'm able to do that, I get market share. Again, how did GT Bank win market share? Customer service, Abi. They came and they used customer service to beat First Bank. How did Oceanic Bank get market share? If you have a restaurant, they'll go and pick up your cash. Yesterday, they'll take Mami wagon to your place, pick up your cash collection. They won market share. Nigerian banks would find a way to open up a little crack and get market share. I'm saying
Nigerian banks have become very competitive. The space has changed.
But they're not giving out loans. Let's move on.
It's getting harder.
They're not giving out loans. That's a weak. That's an Achilles heel.
No, true.
They're not giving out loans.
That's the problem I said about GT. That's what I spoke about GT.
All right, fantastic. Now, let's talk about Jai's Bank. So again, let's do FCMB. Let's come back to FCMB. So you've said well, let's do FCMB. FCMB, old. I don't know. People know that FCMB is the oldest Nigerian-owned bank that is existing today. I'll put aware of that. It used to be FCMB. Yeah, that is the oldest Nigerian-owned bank existing today. The gentleman that has passed on, Chama Tumba, wonderful guy, built a legacy. FCMB has got access to a pension fund, so that they have that same Stanbic thing going with them, but they are also retail and they are very strong in corporate and institutional banking. Olumide, for FCMB, we've seen the numbers here. Dividend yield about 4, not that high. P ratio is 2.7. Again, it's good. Returns 20. It's not that bad. What's your take on a bank like FCMB?
And be very interesting bank. You look at return on equity, higher than 20%. You look at their revenue drivers, interest income, acting more like a bank, and also they spread their tentacles in investment. They own CSL.
Correct. They own CSL. They have a lot of them. They own the PFA. They own the PFA. That PFA now has merged with Odua. So they have Odua, that PFA, FCMB. You see the attacking lineup now? You see the attacking lineup?
Yeah, quite solid. So if you look at it from capital adequacy, earning growth, digital revenue, the way investors look at the stock, they say solid, yeah. Shareholders dilution, neutral. But FCMB for me, price, like I said, look at when they capitalize, look at the price. I think for me, the room for growth is limited because they're in a very competitive environment. So I think I'm going to hold, not because I don't see upgrade, but I don't want to be too optimistic about the present fundamentals.
Okay.
We are gradually going to a very competitive environment. So I think tier 2 banks will struggle more than the tier 1 banks. So I think I would rather put a hold on the bank.
Year-to-date return, this is one of the few that I've seen. Year-to-date return is negative for FCMB in terms of price action. Year-to-date all-time about 178. The bank has not had Viagra. It's a good bank, but they haven't had any Viagra in terms of their stock earnings. Results are out tomorrow. PE ratio 2.9, not that bad. EPS 4.10, dividend yield 4.9. The bank is there. But I think that the bank has got some hidden things that are working for it. They're not saying it, or investors are not seeing it. If you have a PFA, you have Udua, and you have this, they're very, very good in IT as well. I think they can do more than what they are doing now. So fantastic.
And they require the international banking license, Carlos. So
they are very strong in London. They have that pedigree. So
they have a bright future. Let's be honest. But the environment is just very competitive. So you just have to be very objective looking at. But when you look at it individually, like you said, if you look at, I think there's room for growth. And the woman leading that team, she's sound. She's sound. She's one of the best players in the Nigerian banking industry.
Look, then, what would you say about Jai's Bank? Unique bank, non-interest bank. Nigeria, I think that they were the first non-interest, full-fledged bank.
One of my favorite banks in Nigeria. One of the easiest bank to own. One of the easiest.
Bank.
Just looking at, one of the easiest bank to. Just looking at the big players behind it now. The former First Bank.
Before you answer, let me give you some figures. Dividend yield is atrocious, 1.49. Atrocious. PE ratio is a very expensive bank. The stock is very expensive. The stock let me give you this. Jai's Bank at 9 naira is more expensive than Zenith Bank at 100 naira.
But you need to know what is driving for that Jai's fundamental. That's what I'm trying to. That's why I said, you see, that's why when I invest in a stock, and we are in moving era, because let's be honest with you, we are in an era where these things are not going to matter. I'm already starting making the argument, EPS, P, price to book, because you can see how subjective these things are.
We can't leave data we don't like. I
know, but we can see how subjective these things are in different markets. And if you look at performance on each asset, you see that these things don't.
Okay, but why are people buying the stock at?
So, Jais, a lot of reasons. Non-interest, it attracts a certain aspect of people, religion, this non-interest thing, some Muslims don't invest in interest banks,
Sure.
And they'll tell you, so Jais is one of the best options, and like I mentioned, look at people on the team. So if you're looking at it from that metric, you lose the value that you're seeing. And that's why I say, Carl, you have to have a balanced approach when you're investing in the Nigerian stock market. I tell people that, you must have a good understanding why you must read the balance statement, but you must also understand why the price is at this level, why investors are holding on the stock, the management behind the team, the peculiar region. Because culturally, Nigerian banks react differently the way the US stock market banks. When I'm buying when I'm buying banks in the US stock market, the metrics I use is much different, despite the fact that we have almost similar approaches on how banks are being reviewed. So it's very important for investors to have that. And for me, I think Jais still has a lot. So that's why I'm putting a buy. In fact, I'm putting a strong buy. And the reason is not far-fetched because Jais attracts certain segment of Nigerians. Nigeria is a secular country, Muslims, Christians, and many people rather put their money in Jais rather than Zenith. And you need to respect the cultural reasons and the religious reasons. So, an average Muslim is not cares less about your PE and your return on equity or what you are the dividend. What he gets is like the bank, the structure, the formation, those behind. And I think Jais has been able to work around that very smartly.
Okay,
had pullback, share price pullback recently, but I think for me, I'll put a strong buy on Jais Bank.
And the numbers tend to agree with you, Lumide, because year-to-date number is 104%. All-time 700%. So the bank has been it's an investor's darling. Investors like it. Even if the numbers are not quote-unquote shouting, investors seem to like the bank. So the numbers seem to agree with you. Nigerians don't care about PE. They care about other things. The numbers tend to agree with you. I won't argue. I mean, I'm a numbers guy. The numbers say investors like it, even with the PE. It's a very expensive stock. Earnings are anemic. Dividend yield is anemic, but investors love it. Love it. All right, just to do a fun research, do a story about Jais Bank, do a story about some of these banks. Okay.
You see the feedback on each, and you see what investors are looking at. That's why I said that, it's not that we should disregard these metrics you mentioned. We need to understand why investors look at that metrics, but you need to also understand what is really pumping these individual banks,
Okay.
And that's why I said, Jais is a very good bank in terms of that.
What I want to see Olumide with Jais is to compare Jais loan book with a UBA or a Zenith loan book and see what impairments have done with a non-interest banking and interest banking loans. I would love to see that report.
That would not be fair.
Just to get this, to see what I can deduce from those numbers. I'm not comparing both of them, but just to see what I can deduce. If you have non-interest banking, do Nigerians pay back better than if you have interest banking? That's what I'm looking for, to get the psychology of the borrower in Nigeria vis-a-vis in those two banks. I think I think so. The EPS. Someone is asking the EPS for Jais is very, very low. Both EPS and all. EPS is about 70 kobo. This is the lowest we've seen. 70 kobo. Dividend yield about 74%. Yeah, it's very, very low. But hey, so now we've done all the banks in Nigeria. I think I like how we broke it down bank by bank, because each bank has got a unique attribute to it, right? We've talked about Jais Bank, where the numbers are not quote-unquote kosher, right? But investors like the bank. Then we talked about a bank like Fidelity that's got the highest paying dividend yield, but investors are not buying the stock. So it's a very, very unique environment in Nigeria where people are maybe investing based on sentiment as well as hard numbers. So for an investor, what does that tell you? You've got to be careful. Remember what I told Olumide last week? Volume is a key indicator of today. Volume. Because if people are buying that bank, it doesn't matter if the bank is posting PE, right? The bank shares will go up. Earnings are your ultimate arbiter. If the bank posts earnings, the bank stocks are going to go up. So the bank...
That's why I tell a lot of people that if it was just looking at balance sheets, accountants would be the most successful investors in the market. I think, you see, my problem with our space is that we place so much importance on numbers and we...
But we have to. It's not... Don't say that it's a bad thing.
Let me explain why it's a problem. It's a problem because we get carried away, because the way we read those numbers, we don't even read them as correct because we need to understand that these numbers are subjective. If you look at the way Americans read results and look at the way earnings move American markets, you see they are more informed and they are balanced. Because there's a reason or there's a rationality behind being addicted to a number, and you can't even explain the number. You don't even know how the number is coming up. Because let's be honest, P, for example, what was rationality behind P? Let us because see when they teach us in school like formulas, they tell us that how it was derived, so you understand. The average Nigerian needs to understand that there are reasons why you shouldn't put all your eggs on these actions. If you're investing in Nigeria, for example, you need to understand the cultural, the fundamentals, and the type of investors. Nigerian bank investors, for example, are dividend crazy. In the US stock market, it's not that. JP Morgan, for example, dividend is about 1%. Morgan Stanley is about 2%. But I will tell you for free, investors look at different things when they. So you also need to look at what investors are, and that's how you make money. And that's why I was saying that. See, Tony, for example, I don't need to have so much headache looking at all the numbers cards cracking. I don't have that time. I look at markets, many markets. I invest in many markets. The three metrics I look at is first the management team, what they're doing, what they are saying. Do they believe in the team? Can they convince the market? If I can get that, that's a green flag. Second, the management team. How have they performed in the last 5 years? How have they performed? Are these guys dirty? Do these guys just speak? Are they actions? What are their what systemic role do they play in the economy? Then the last one, the market integrity, which is very important to me. So, Tony Lumina has had those three. If you look at it, let's be fair. The guy has not, under the stock market, I've not seen any business that failed under him. And that's why I said that culturally, people will be biased towards Tony. He doesn't even need to make a noise. People will say, well, based on his historical performance, he has done certain things right.
Okay, let me make this point to those listening, all right? There is price, there is volume, there is earnings. Of these three, the one that is easily manipulated is price. I used to work in an investment bank in Nigeria. I've told this story many times, and I'm very careful when I say, because I don't want to put anybody in trouble. I know a guy that picked a particular stock, and that was his baby. And he used to move the share price up and down. A normal investor guy, he would just buy it by 4 o'clock, maybe by 1 o'clock. He would tell the broker to buy. Once you move the price up on closing, there's no bid. He makes an offer. He makes a bid. He moves the stock up by, that time was 5%. He moves it by 5% every day. So if you look at the daily price list in Nigeria stocks, you're going to see that this stock was going up in price every day. So if you ask your computer, your trading Bloomberg, and say, hey Bloomberg, if give me the best performing share in Nigeria, it will pull that stock that guy was buying, because the stock has gone from 1 naira to 10 naira. So Bloomberg will pull it, right? Because it's performing. But the volume is where you would have removed that stock, because there was no volume. The guy was buying 100 shares and the price will move up. 100 shares, the price will move up. Again, let me give you a more recent example. The best performing stock last year was NCR in the whole of Nigeria. The best performing stock last year was NCR. The second best performing stock in Nigeria last year, I don't call the stock, I don't want to get into trouble, was a bank. A bank. Second best performing stock in all of Nigeria. So as at December, it was the second best performing. By February, the bank had been delisted. Why? Because the price action went up, but there was no volume, there was no earnings. So Americans look at earnings. It is day traders that look at pricing. If you want to trade, earnings are your future. You want to say, is the bank making earnings? Yes. Then you big a strong tick mark. Is the volume supporting its earnings to going up? Yes, you put a tick mark. The least one you want to look at is the pricing, because you and I can move the price. We can wake up tomorrow, we just like the stock, we buy the stock, the price goes up. That's our volume. After we buy, nobody buys. The stock is high, but nobody is supporting that volume. It will just fall. So be very careful of price. Volume and earnings are really, especially earnings. If earnings go up, price stock is going to go up. If volume goes up, price is going to go up. But the price is the result, not the cause, right? Don't confuse the cause and the result. Olumide, let's come to UBA specifically, right? UBA, because UBA, like I said, this week has a lot of teachable points in UBA. And I'll talk about UBA because what happened was that UBA declared a great result, but they had a provision. For those that don't know what provision means, you mean in Nigerian banking or accounting, you make 100 naira profit, but you have given out loans, and those folks either have not paid or they are not going to pay. So what do? You take money from your profit and you quote unquote cover that loan. So from that 100 naira, you take maybe your 20 naira and you cover that loan and say, if these guys don't pay, I will lose the money. So UBA took money from its profits and covered the loan exposure it had. When it did this, of course, there was no cash sufficient to pay those dividends. So what you saw with UBA was that cash came down, there was profit, there was gross earnings, there was margins, but cash went to provisioning. Because there's no cash, no dividend. So as an investor, should I look at as an investor? Remember the three things I tell you. If you want to buy a share, there are three things you want to look at. You want to buy a stock, and I'll give you those answers. Number one, the strength of the stock. The strength is talking about the earnings per share, the price earnings ratios, the margins, the yields. All those number things are what is the strength of the stock. Look at those ones. If they look good, you take it. So the strength of the stock is your number one thing you want to look at, why the stock is good. The second thing we'll look at is the company's share in its own market. So for instance, is Wema Bank growing in the Nigerian banking sector? So number one, if you're looking at it, share to buy, number one is Wema Bank shares. What are their fundamentals? What's the PE? What's the dividend margin? What's all that stuff? You take it and keep it aside. Number two, is Wema growing in the banking sector, in its own sector? Because there's no point making a profit if your market is shrinking. You see the point? If you make a profit, but your market size is shrinking, eventually you'll be Betamax. You have a better product, you'll be like, or Nokia, maybe because Nokia phones, better product, better whatever, better pricing. But the Chinese guys and Nokia and Apple are squeezing your market share to the point where BlackBerry, where nobody carries a BlackBerry anymore. 15 years ago, all the executives on earth, including Barack Obama, the president of the United States of America, had a BlackBerry. He couldn't leave it, called a crackberry. Today, nobody has a BlackBerry. So if you're making a profit, but your market share is shrinking, that's not a good buy. So number two, the market share of that good company has got to be increasing. Number three, the market for that product generally has got to be expanding. So which means that there's BlackBerry, there's iPhone, but the market for phones, is it expanding or is it reducing? So number one, look at Nokia's numbers. Nokia's numbers, are they going up? Are they coming down? If it's going up, that's a good buy. Keep it aside. If it's going down, you are worried. Look at number two. Is Nokia's share in the cell phone market going up or coming down? If it's going down, it's a big worry, even if they are making a profit, because they could be kicked out by Apple in years to come. Then number three, is the market share itself for cell phones expanding or contracting? Look at it this way. If you have a company making black and white televisions at a profit that has 90% of the market share, but it's making black and white televisions, you don't want to buy that stock, because in a few years, no one's going to watch black and white televisions. So all three have got to be positive. It's got to make money, it's got to be growing, then the market itself has got to be growing. So with that in mind, Olumide, let's go back to UBA, right?
Yeah, so can I add something before you go on? Yeah,
go for
so
it.
yeah, I totally agree with you that when you look at the result, break into the result, and the fact that they had to make provision about I think about 331 billion naira to cover such loans, and that's why they skipped the final dividend. For me, I'm just looking at it that that's really disappointed investors because a lot of people buy bank stocks, particularly UBA, for their dividends. Now look at you've spoken about the fundamental support that still looks like from a bright action. Now let's look at it from a technical action, which is my favorite part in the market. If you look at, we have what we call the relative strength index. That just measures if a stock is overbought or over. So just try to tell you whether it's expensive in the market or it's cheap. Don't mistake it with intrinsic value. That's knowing the true value of your stock. That one, we'll go with that later. So if you look at the RSI, just says it's 39. 39 means that the stock is at an oversold territory. So it calculator tells you that it's cheaper than what you're saying, GTZ assets right now. It's cheaper. So the likelihood of you having drawdowns from present level is lower. That's from I'm speaking behind the RSI. Now you look at support resistance, like I mentioned, the stock looked like it was going to sink below 40 naira, but he found support around 41, 42 naira. Now, if you look at from the 52-week low to 52-week high, has been trading between 31 and 55 naira. You look at the price now, look at what the big brokerage firms from Cardinal to Stanbic can say. They're telling that this is a 55 naira stock. I think with what Carlo have said, and I think with what I've read out for you guys to look at it from the market, it's not at, and you look at Tony, the man behind it, to his chairman, right? You now tend to wonder that would you want to buy or would you want to sell? Or that's your own decision. But for me, I think what is really important is that the stock, I don't think it's a bad business. Based on what has happened, I don't think it's a bad business. I think what we should be concerned is if this happens again and again. And, the CEO had highlighted the fact that this is a one-off event. So I think investors should be patient. I think this is not like a king cobra in your room chasing you. I think we should stop this. I think finally, my own take on UBA, where I feel UBA should take advantage of is like they really need to be their expansion. They need to consolidate now. I've seen Tony trying to the francophone countries. I've seen what he has done in Paris. UBA, Carl, we have UBA in France now. I hope you are aware. We have UBA in France. So I think the Pan-African and the francophone connection, I think that will favor Nigeria now, because you also need to look at Nigeria. Nigeria is the heartbeat of Africa. Where we are positioned, we're going to be a logistics hub in the long term. So any bank that has that kind of traction, like GT and things like that, so GT West Africa and the UB, I think they will benefit from that. So I think investors should look at that.
Okay, so now let's now do the numbers, right? Because people are listening to us saying, "Hey, we're just talking." Let's do the numbers. Let's use these three factors I've talked about, i.e., strength of the stock, growing market share, and is the sector expand? Let's see if we can use that to analyze UBA stock, right? So UBA for earnings per share, 9.66 naira per share, is down, but it's a one-time reset. Remember, this EPS being down is a one-time, i.e., because they did not pay dividends, so your EPS has gone down, right? Heavy provisioning, 331 billion provisioning, again, 1 year. And number three, FX reversal on the balance sheet. Last year, we were calling UBA Wall Street. We were calling them Goldman Sachs because they made a lot of money from their trading desk with FX. This year, there's no FX to trade, right? i.e., we've already passed that stage. So they can't trade that again. So it's showing up in their results. Again, these are 1 year events. By next year, there might be no impairment. So whatever revenues they then get is going to show up on the stock. Return on equity, again, 10.5. Down below the historical 20, again, reset effect. There's post-capitalization reserves and all that. So post-capitalization has affected ROE. Again, right? Keep that in mind. Profit margin is the stock making money because the stock is the bank, right? Net margin 20%. Very, very healthy for a bank that is all across Africa, right? Dividend yield 6.57. Not bad. Again, they did not declare a final dividend. So you are comparing a bank that declared just interim 6.57 with other banks that are doing about 3-4% dividend yield. 5-year earnings growth, CAGR of 39%. CAGR of 39%. Not bad. So UBA is, to me, look at it, UBA is like a good company, maybe like a Boeing that has got bad news, right? It's still a good stock that if you get into, right, because of the spread they're talking about, they are all over Africa, they are in China, they are in Dubai, they are now in France, they are in the US. They have a certain attribute that you can then play on. Those drive earnings on the stock. And again, 50% of their earnings are coming from outside Nigeria. Diversification. So that's the strength of the stock right there. Let's go to the second factor. Is the company's market share improving in Nigeria? UBA is a tier 1 bank in Nigeria, right? It's one of only 3 banks by assets, one of the top 3 to 5 banks by assets. Massive retail footprint, 45 million customers, over 1,000 branches. Strongest brand, Pan-African operations. Half of their revenues and profits come from outside Nigeria. So in terms of market share, they are top 3 in a market in Nigeria. So number 1, their stock price, we've talked about stock price and their attributes look good. They are growing in their own sector. They are top 3 in their own sector. What about if you look at it internationally? Is the companies banking in Nigeria expanding? Yes. Banking sector is going to grow about 7% per year. We're going to get about $16 billion market by 2030. 2030 is 4 years away. So by 2030, McKinsey is saying Nigerian banking market is going to be about 16 billion. And this company is growing market share in a growing sector and is a top 3 participant in that sector, right? Broader African revenues are going to keep on expanding. UBA's Pan-African services are growing faster than the Nigerian domestic business. So UBA has captured the mature market in Nigeria. It's one of the top 3 banks in Nigeria. It's now capturing the growth in, say, Burkina Faso, Gambia, Sierra Leone. It's capturing those faster growing markets outside Nigeria. So the market is not just growing, it's shifting towards a larger, better capitalized, digitally enabled banking. And of course, UBA, of course, have got those things there. Why I'm making this point is this, right? When you want to trade on news, you want to sit back and ask yourself, is this a dip or is the company really going to be bad? If UBA was Nokia, UBA might have passed the first test and says, hey, the company shares might be good. They make phones and all that, right? But it wouldn't pass the second and third test. It's not growing in its market because it's Apple. And the market share for non-smartphones that don't have a typewriter, that don't have a flat screen, touch screen, is also falling. So they won't have passed that stage. But for these guys, 1, 2, and 3, I think they've passed. I believe, look at the simple pitch. By next year, they might have the same revenues with no impairment. So if the market price had fallen and you bought, you are buying that same earnings at a cheaper price. So I hope you guys were able to get into that action and you see how we sort of analyze that news. The news was oversold. It's bad not to pay dividends. Let me just explain that Nigerians want dividends. Nigerians love dividends. But to oversell and actualize perhaps a loss or to actualize you are out of that streak because you didn't get a dividend. I don't know about that strategy. Olimide, what do you think?
Totally, you said everything, Carl. For me, that was why I just chipped in a bit more. Actually, I'm just hoping that, the market will still be calm, any retraction. And another thing again is that I spoke with a lot of traders that people behind because yes, dividend was not in play. But if you look at people dropping the stock, it was a bit suspicious, like the other 12 billion naira, and I was making the argument that Nigerian stock market is not that big for us not to know who's behind 12 billion naira. And my own thinking was maybe pension funds, because if you look at the pension fund index, for example, most of the stocks there are dividend. In fact, I think all, if not all, So I was thinking maybe a major, but from what I saw, I just felt like it was a funny price movement. So I really got in, and I think I'm having a mid to long term approach on it. Like I said, UB has done well over the years, so I don't see a bad year in terms of the fact that they didn't. It's not that they had. You could argue about the fact that they had some bad loans, and if you look at the non-performing loan in banking industry, the fact that forbearance, the new category around forbearance and oil and gas now has moved to category 3. It really makes it very tough, Carlo, in this space.
Question for you, Lumide. Is this an issue with banks in Nigeria in general? Are they having an NPL issue?
Yeah, so, Carlo, the argument then was because our books look so clean. Like, if you look at the results between 2024 and 2026 now, it looks a bit messier now, because now banks are more transparent, and there are a lot of things now the CBN has really changed in this space. Then don't forget that we have a very high CRR, 45%, So that is why I said that GT is benefiting from a high interest environment, and they don't give as much like the other guys. So, you could look at it that makes it very interesting. Look at ROE, capital efficiency, cost of capital, look at other bases. It makes it, but in the real sense, in the economy, you can't grow your economy with GT's model. Let's be honest with that. You spoke about the fact that...
What is that model? What is that model? What is that model? Explain that model.
Is the Goldman Sachs. That's the Goldman Sachs model of making most of your buck in investment or securities.
Okay.
You get it, Carlo. So if you look at it, for example, we have a Goldman Sachs in America, we have a JP Morgan, we have a Wells Fargo, we have a Citi. Look at these are even big banks. We have a Morgan Stanley, but each bank does different things. So I don't have a problem with GT. But when everybody wants when everyone wants UBA to be GT, you want First Bank to be UBA, or you want Zenith to be GT, I have a problem with that. I think people need to understand. That's why I said that as the market evolves, I think as people's perception changes what value banks should bring in the system, because right now people are concerned about money. Like you can't blame. See, like I said, passive income. Some people had 1 million, some people had 5 million, some people had 300,000, 400. That's a lot, in the Nigerian space. So, I feel like as we get involved, the functionality of banks and what banks bring the mood to, because I think it's unfair when we compare assets, for example. You can't expect assets, for example, cost efficiency of assets to be better than that of GT. GT doesn't really, and you can't expect the NPL. So there are ways Americans look at these things differently, and that is why, see, if Nigerians were, my argument has been this, I've been telling my colleagues on the high street that if Nigerians were investing in the US stock market, they would have put Goldman Sachs higher than JP Morgan.
But ultimately, in the Nigerian banking market, right, isn't it a question of who is going to have the fastest growth, control the largest market share? I don't even look at it, because that's what will drive earnings. If you look at all the banks in Nigeria today, from UBA to Zenith to Wema to Fidelity, it's a question of the next 5 years. Who is going to be the preferred banker to a 35-year-old boy in Kogi? That's the question. And if you get now the Kogi boy doesn't have to go to a banking branch to bank. That's the point I'm making. He can sit in his local, not even in a town, in Lokoja, in his local government area. He can sit there, do his banking, do his stockbroking, do his loans, pay for JAMB, pay for his bills, all on his app. If you can get a bank that can do this, that bank's going to win.
But Carlo, see, look at the fundamentals behind different banks. Let's be honest, retail banking in Nigeria is not expansive. You look at the big boys behind, they're making money mostly from corporates and treasury.
Yeah,
Let's be
they
honest.
are making money
That's where
from
they're making.
taking money from you.
That's where their bread. That's where their bread and butter is. If you look
Yes.
at the Americans, for example, it's a different thing entirely, Carlo.
Okay, but
It's a
look,
different thing
the point
entirely.
again is that this, right? The reason why Rocket Bank Finance can't beat JP Morgan, JP Morgan has got years of cheap capital.
Yeah,
Okay, but
yeah,
I'm saying in Nigeria today, how many Nigerians own a bank account? It's less than 50%.
yeah,
How many Nigerians that own that bank account have more than 500,000 in that bank account? It's less than 5%.
yeah,
So we don't have the scale that America has.
yeah,
And I'm saying the market is
yeah,
still open. No matter how
yeah.
big you look at Zenith today, they can be taken. Because Zenith took down
Yes,
First Bank and not this UBA. The old UBA, Wiseman Bank with UBA, that UBA was
yes.
UBA,
But Carlo, let me make you laugh.
AfriBank, Union Bank, and First Bank. They were
Yeah,
taken
but
down.
Carlo, let me make you laugh. I agree with you, but let me make you laugh. To get a bank license in Nigeria now, it's easier for you to have an appointment with the president now than to get a bank license. Mention the banks that have gotten a bank license directly. Now, it's harder than before. The Nigerian ecosystem, let me tell you how it is, the banking system now. What you're saying, I totally agree with you, but it's now very competitive. And those banks are not sleeping. I get what you're saying. I feel like what will change our banking industry is consolidation, or if a big player comes in and buy one of them, and so like what happened, look at what happened in Stanbic and things like that. But if you look from the fact I'm saying, like, you want to tell me like a floater wave or a money point or a OP, I can bet my score that
Okay.
you're betting that to overtake Zenith or GTO. I can bet my score that will not happen. It will only happen if the CBN is broken into regions like what we have in the US, like a different region, US, Fed of New York,
All right.
we don't have that. I don't see it, Carlo.
All
It
right.
won't happen. Let's
Okay.
be honest.
We'll
The
see.
politics behind it, the politics behind the market, I don't see it happening. You see, Carlo, I'm not disputing fintech's progress in terms of bank financial services. I'm not disputing that. What I'm telling you is that we are ignoring the political and cultural. See, Wema Bank has been. There are limits to what Wema can do in this. See, I don't know how you're looking at it, but
No,
if you think the fintech
I'm not
space
saying
will
it's going to
take a market
happen.
share from, if you think the fintech will take a will take,
But look, they've taken loans from them. More Nigerians get loans from the fintech
yeah,
guys
but
than from banks.
Retail loans, retail loans, don't compare retail loans and commercial
The
loans
largest
now.
banks make so in Nigeria. So again, Olumide, where do they make money from in banking, investment banking, personal banking, and all that, right? So the point I'm making again, let me make the point to you. No fintech going to wake up and start lending to MTN. They don't have that capacity. But if the banks, how did First Bank lose its crown? They lost it from the streets. They lost it from the streets. People could go to Nigerian banks without a mat, without tally number. They open account in GT, they open account in not just all these new banks. All those new banks, they open account in them. They understood that, oh, banking can be pleasant, it can be fast, it can be, in AC halls. You can do banking in AC halls. People flock to those banks. Till today, Nigerians use their banks for collecting salaries. That's what they use their bank accounts for. Look at the report that EFINA publishes every 2 years. We don't really do banking here. We open a bank account, get salary, then use the bank account and spend money. We're
That's
not
what I'm
doing we're
saying.
not
You're
doing
making
we're not doing
you're making the case for the big
we're
banks.
not doing commercial loans. We're not
Yeah.
doing anything. We're not doing student loans. We're not doing anything that is fancy. We don't do mortgages in Nigeria. We don't have mortgages. We have
No,
5 year. We have
we
5 year.
started
We have
mortgage.
5 year loans that we call mortgage. We have a few 10 year
No,
loans that
but
we
can
call
you start
mortgages.
mortgage? No,
What bank?
I
What bank does mortgage? What bank?
Stanbic.
You can't do mortgage without a
Stanbic.
mortgage refinance company. They can give you a loan to buy a house, doesn't make it a mortgage, right? They can give you a loan and say, hey, this loan is to go and buy a house. But there's no mortgage refinance. There is no lender at last resort. There is no risk rating. There's no loan to value calculation. There is no central registry where you can take your title to and verify that title and then use that title as a collateral for in a bank to get an equitable mortgage. We don't have all that. You can't have a
I get it
mortgage
there.
loan without that.
I get it
We
there.
have
I get
loans
it there.
to buy a house, but we don't have a mortgage.
Yeah.
I hear Lumide, it's been a fantastic session, Lumide. I think we spent 2 hours here talking Nigerian banks. You've taken us through the whole government, right? We took you on, we asked you about the big boys, the GTs, Zenith, Access, UBA, Stanbic. I think what we're hearing from you is that we're not hearing you say goodbye. We're hearing your insight behind these banks, right? Behind these banks, why you think these banks are good, why you think these banks are laggards. And I think it's been very enlightening. Even for me, I learned one or two things what you said. I read your article for Nairametrics where you talked about the how CBN has sort of changed the picture. If you haven't read it, look for Nairametrics. This article is there on only they can share that article. I also share as well. I think it's very, very interesting. But that's the point we're trying to do in this space. So to just talk around Nigerian banking stocks, then we focused on UBA. We're not talking of UBA in particular, but we're saying investor reaction to sell on news of no dividends when the issuing company has still got making a profit. This was like what we call a black swan. Is it maybe a gray swan? It's a gray swan event, right? It's still making a profit, still making a margin, and then we're selling on the back of no dividends. I don't know about that. So we've really touched on all that. And just want to see if you have any remarks as we sort of wind down the space. Oh, if you guys had a few questions, Ifrex, I do apologize. Ifrex, hi.
I'm sorry, Ifrex.
I do apologize. And, lots of guys had requested speak. I just want to get through. So Ifrex, I don't know if it's still going to be there. If you want to ask that question, please go ahead and ask. And if you want to ask your question, please also go ahead and I'll add you. Ifrex, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Carlo.
How are you, sir?
And I'm fine. And good evening, Olumide.
Good evening.
Yeah, I know you guys are doing good. So I've been here listening to you, I think almost since the beginning, before the first space got disrupted by maybe network or something. So I later rejoined. And I just want to say I'm holding two banks. And the reason I'm holding these two, number one, that I'm holding that's in my portfolio is UBA. I think whenever I opened an account when I was in the university with UBA. So I think for the past 2 years or something, whenever my money is in the bank, is in the account, and I do not touch it for like almost a month or so, I will receive like an interest of, let's say, about around 5%. I don't really know the exact percentage figure, and that has been making my UBA to be interesting for me, and that's the main reason why I am holding that stock. So the in-depth data about everything, the PE, I don't really go on to check them. It's just that simple act, has been making UPA to be interesting for me.
Just ending your interest enough for you as a customer. That's why you own the stock. Is it the stock or the deposit? Yeah. Okay.
The stock, I own the stock, and also, I also have deposit in the bank. So owning receiving interest on my savings in the bank, which I've not really been seeing it from other banks as well. So that's what makes me to be interesting for me to hold UBA. So despite the fact that there was no dividend this quarter, but I didn't, even as it dipped, I didn't panic because I know they're a very good bank and it's a top tier bank.
All right.
And the second bank I'm holding there is GTB. The reason I'm holding GTB is because I think that bank, the way they used to charge me, there's no other bank that charges me like that. I would just maybe from SMS. I don't know if there's a flat rate for SMS alert charge, but that of GT Bank is always something else. If I keep money in GT Bank, let's say I keep a round figure of 10,000 naira, at the end of 3 months, I think that money will drop. Why in UBA that money will increase, but in GTB that money will. So there are charges. So instead of me complaining, like, why are they always putting all these charges on me? I said, okay, let me follow them. Maybe, and whenever they're declaring profit, their profit is always somehow very big. Their yearly profit, something like that. And I said, okay, instead of me complaining, why let me just join them and see what their stock will be doing. So I purchased their stock and believe that they've been doing well, and their dividend came, and something that is interesting as well. So that's the main reason why I'm holding this two bank. I'm not really holding any other thing, any other banks outside the two.
Okay.
So that's just that. That's my.
That's an interesting perspective that because they charge you, you then bought their stocks to reduce your losses or to reduce your costs. That's an interesting reason to buy a stock. That's fine. That's fine. Thanks, Ifrex. I appreciate those comments. Yeah. Um, Ben, go ahead. Ben, can you hear me?
Yeah, Carlo, good evening. Good evening, Olumide. Um, Olumide, it's like you've been covering banking for a very long time. I was really impressed by some of the insights that you gave. Some of the insights that you gave. I learned a lot, because there's a lot going on in that sector. Questions regarding heading, So I have a question for you. Would you say that Nigeria's banking sector is a little bit saturated and hyper competitive? And based on that, what do you think, 5 to 10 years from now, maybe 5 to 15 years from now, what do you think the sector would look like, vis-a-vis the impact of competition coming from fintech, the states of tier 2, tier 3 banks, would there be more consolidations, or what do you just think in that regard?
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. So, I'm not always good being a market prophet, to be honest with you, and the reasons are not far-fetched. The variables in the Nigerian economy is still quite unstable. You can't compare the Nigerian economy with the US economy. It's very easy for you to project what JP Morgan would do in the next 4 or 5 years, Citi, Wells Fargo. But I will give you something for free, and it's from the fact that Nigerian banks also are very smart. If you look at their holding co structure, many of them have fintech positioning. Even UBA that doesn't have, the chairman has a significant exposure in a fintech company. And you also need to look at the fact that on the stock market, assets, for example, Intraza, you look at the position, how they've positioned themselves into that. So for me, I'm not so worried about fintech taking a grab on Nigerian banks, meat pie in this decade, at least. What I'm really concerned about is how the oil sector, who wins the game around Dangote Refinery, because I think that will change a lot because look at Dangote Refinery or Dangote Group will be the biggest company in Nigeria. Any of these banks that have a major pie in that conglomerate will be a big winner. And we all know Dangote's best friend. And we also know the marketing prowess of Tony Lumelu. So it's more like the tier 1 banks will definitely eat the bigger pie till the end of this decade. For tier 2 banks, I think I like Sulaiman of Sterling. I've never hidden my passion for him. The guy is work from Accenture to InterSwitch he's a very brilliant chap. So I'm betting on tech products coming from that place. But I think Wema has shown that they are not a bank that can be pushed, and I think they are looking like winning the crown in tier 2 area. For Stanbic, I think they're going to really consolidate. You look at the investment arm. People talk about PiggyVest, people talk about Cowrywise. Yeah, they're impressive, but if you really look at the numbers, I think you will not ignore Blue Nest and Stanbic Blue Nest. Mutual money market, for example, there's no firm that has that volume like Stanbic. And you also look at the array of services Stanbic offers. I think they will really be the big players, at least in this decade, in investment banking. So in the long run, I think what I would just be shocked is if we see a serious merger between tier one banks, which doesn't look likely, I think something I was wishing for, like maybe a Zenith and GT or a UB or Star, something. But I don't see that happening. And I think these guys definitely have shown that they can raise capital beyond Nigeria, like during the capital raise, So I'm betting that tier one banks will definitely be the Apple of the Nigerian bank industry. Tier two banks definitely will take fintech soup. OPay listing in the US stock market would also bring more light into the fintech service space. But Nigerian banks like Harry for GT and Alert for Wema would give them much more light. Then don't forget, like I said, Tonemi's exposure in the fintech camp. We don't know if he's going to list it. We don't know if he's going to, but it just tells you that those guys too, they are aware of their Achilles heels and they are not sleeping. So I think for investors that are looking within this decade, I think they should focus on the strength of our sector right now, and they're these guys.
Linda, can I have a follow up?
Thank you. So what about, sorry, let me add, what about tier 2 consolidation, tier 2, tier 3? Do you think we are getting to a point where they will be forced to consolidate? Because personally, I feel like we have a lot of banks in that space.
Yeah, but they have to. But you see, the politics. You see, Nigeria. If you look at the fundamentals, Nigerian banks are not just. You don't just look at the economical side. You look at the political angle too. They have to. But if you look at how Wema came out, I didn't give Wema a chance, to be honest with you. That's why I said Maruf did a very good job. Maruf Hosseini did a very good job with that, And if you look at Sterling, the way they are positioning themselves, look at how they reduce charges. Sterling is one of the cheapest bank to open as a retail customer. They don't have this excessive charge this guy mentioned in the Orange Bank. You don't see it in Sterling, And if you look at Fidelity's growth in SME is impressive. I told you the story behind Money Point, and so it's very FCMB too is another bank. So yes, it's possible, but the fact that all these banks scale through and they don't look like their revenues is watering down, their margins doesn't look like they are significantly impacted. Though we're not seeing those huge profits we saw last year. I think time will tell, but yes, more likely we should expect consolidation.
Can you shed more light on the Money Points Fidelity link? What's going on there?
Okay, I think it's just a story on how Money Point started I think they had a deal with Fidelity. They did some stuff with them, and from there they scaled. I'm just talking of how Fidelity supported small scale businesses, because you see,
are you saying that Fidelity is on their cap table?
No, I'm just saying that they helped push the story. Without Fidelity, I don't think Money Point would have had the story they have. It's just like talking about the impact Morgan Stanley had on Mark Zuckerberg or on some of these things. Because see, you need to understand that banks that invest. For example, a bank that invested in you when you're a millionaire, by the time you get to a billionaire status, you definitely, they have advantages. That is why Morgan Stanley's wealth management is doing very well. Yeah, that is why Morgan Stanley's wealth management is doing better than Goldman Sachs, because Morgan Stanley bet early on many guys in Silicon Valley, while some of these banks were ignoring them. So he paid off for them, and that is why we are where we are.
That's on the follow up of the question he asked about when you said Dangote and the banks. So if Dangote is dealing with, say, a bank, and it's the bank is where Dangote parks his cash, is there a space also for a bank that does, say, supplier finance? So I'm a small tier 1 bank. I don't bank. Dangote is not banking with me, but I'm supporting 500 folks that are doing business with Dangote. Either I fund their purchases from Dangote. That's also a rub-off effect on earnings for those small tier two
Definitely.
banks that are not going to be.
Definitely, Carlo.
Yeah.
Definitely, Carlo. No, me, I'm just talking about the biggest winner. Definitely.
Gotcha.
In fact, most Nigerian banks would benefit from the functionality of the Dangote refinery and the group, because like if you look at the influx of capital coming into the oil and gas industry and look at the levels oil prices are trading, it's very attractive.
And of course, it's also asking me here if we could name that. There's a story out about Nest Oil, and the banks that were involved in Nest Oil are the same banks that are not paying dividends. So if that's a factor, it's already out here. I mean, I saw that report out where the banks that were exposed to Nest Oil are the banks that are not paying dividends. You want to take a stab at that, or you want to let it go?
I'll let you go.
That's a big issue that's going around right now. I didn't want to say too much about that.
It's already out there in the press. It's already out. They actually named the banks in the press. They named the banks that have exposure to Nest Oil. Some we have covered in this space, and Olumide is. I can see Olumide is very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Carlo, there's a saying that if you borrow 1 million naira from a bank and you don't pay back, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But if you borrow 10 billion naira from the bank and you don't pay back, the bank is in trouble.
That is true.
So that is the whole Nest Oil case. Nest Oil beat more than it could chew and failed woefully.
But let's be honest.
Now go back to the bank.
But let's be honest. This is why I said that. I don't want to talk so much about it because people have different way they will view the report. To be honest, if you look at the banks that were exposed, First Bank, Access, UBA, Zenith.
There are more Olumide. It's mostly second tier
Who was the
banks.
biggest? Do we know who the biggest is?
I don't
First
know.
Bank. I think it's First Bank.
Their names
Yeah,
are
I know.
there.
But
Their names are there.
let's be honest. You didn't see GT on the list.
GT is not there. GT is not there.
But is that a good? In Nigeria, people, if you look at it from another view, people say, well, GT is not as good. But if you look at it from an American view or from a market perspective, it tells you that many of the worries you have, many of our banks won't borrow. So are we punishing banks that borrowed businesses that failed? I think we need to be fair. That's another question I ask because, see, when I look at it and I see some experts talk about all these beautiful reports and this is why this bank is, I just shake my head because, see, if you understand the functionality behind the bank, banks are supposed to provide liquidity to the real economy. So if they provide liquidity to the real economy and a business fails, that's not the best way to now paint the back to UPA, for example. If you look at it, we mentioned that they had a good year, but they created provision because of the way the Syrian that they had to deal with those loans. Now, I don't have a problem with that. But if I can bet it to you, Carlo, that if it was going to be in the American stock market, it would be viewed differently. What Americans will look at is UBA's outlook. Do you know that some stocks, if you look at Apple's result, the Apple's earnings on iPhone wasn't impressive. It was the outlook that smashed the stock. Nigerians don't look at outlook. Nigerians look at dividends. So that's another thing again. So I don't know why we keep punishing banks that do their jobs and pro to the sector, and when things go bad. I think it's quite unfair, but that's the rule in Nigeria.
Understood. I think it just highlights that the economy is always circular, and what happens here has an effect here. I think that's just what it means. The article is out there, it's in the cable. They list the banks, and you can see that exposure there. And CBN has said you can't declare dividends until you do NPL. So this might not stop today. So the banks that bite the bullet and do the NPL provisioning clean themselves up for tomorrow. If Nest Oil pays tomorrow, that becomes revenues back to the bank, and it becomes profit to them. Abdul Razak, hi, how you doing, sir? Thanks for waiting. Abdul Razak Yusuf, how you doing? Thanks for waiting.
I'm doing well.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Carl.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Olumide as well. First of all, I think it's a message of gratitude I want to pass, mostly to Olumide, and with Tukalo as well, because I think as of last year, I don't really know much about stocks. Yeah, I hear it, but it's not something I actually know much about. But there was something that, because I read a lot, I read, but like I read bits out of everything. So, but there was something I read last year that actually now like changed my position on making my own research on stocks. And then I think it was MTN. I think MTN, they released their profit something around 2024. And then I think by first quarter of 2025, that profit, they've already like exceeded it. So that in itself like make me think about like this stock of a thing. I think I need to make more research about it. And from someone that has been into crypto for a while and he has got burnt. So I made my research, and then that was when I now came across Olumide's page, and I started following him. And I could say he has like I've been really guided, like not we haven't had like the one-on-one section where we say, okay, he has taught me, but there's a lot of things that he posts, and then following him and then saying you, Mr. Carlo, and then like following you has like been a blessing. I won't lie to you, because why I said this is that a lot of people actually are interested in stocks, but I think the right information is not actually getting out there. For an average Nigerian, stocks actually make sense. And why I said this is that when you are ready to study on these things, when you're ready to like study on your own, yes, it's good to follow it's good to like follow the expert again, but again, you need your own intuition. But I call it guided intuition. Why I say it's guided intuition was that after doing my own research, I think as of December 2025, I started investing in stocks. I think around January. So when I started, I just had to like focus on the big guys, which is like the likes of Dangote, Tony Elumelu, what's it called? BU, Arabu, and then the likes. Those are the first people that I actually first followed, and those are the stocks I first bought, because for me, safety is actually first important to first pursue, and then the likes of MTN as well, because definitely I have to, because MTN is like the biggest I have in all my shares. Like it has like the biggest percentage. It makes a lot of sense for me. And then there was a time when Illumelu bought Seplat, I told someone that Seplat is actually going to double, but I was not going to buy it because it doesn't make sense for me to buy Seplat at that point. It has really, really exceeded something I can say I want to put my money on, except when they have like $1 billion then I want to put, then that's what it makes sense for me. But it doesn't make sense. Same with First Bank.
You can buy the ETF and get in right at the low end.
Okay, so when $10 bought First Bank, I didn't wait. I just bought it. The next day I bought First Bank stock. At times for me, that's why I say it's just guided intuition. $10 and Dangote are best of friends. There is no way we will not have run it through Dangote, and there is no way there will not be a deal that would probably pass through him too when this old refinery is listed and stuff. And then even though they were saying that the big Nigerian banks will actually eat the biggest cake from it, and I don't see a reason why First Bank would not be part of those reasons. So that's like what guided me to like buy some of these stocks. So one of the questions I now want to ask is that, we talked about tier 1 banks and tier 2 banks. For you guys that have been in this stock space for a while now, because when Olumide was saying he has bought Wema Bank when it was like 0.8, it was like 80 kobo or something like that. That's like you could literally gain something really, really significant from someone like something like that if you had actually bought at that point for someone like me. So my question now is that now first for me, tier 1 banks are like, for a lot of people might not be able to make the kind of percentage they want, and then tier 2 banks, yes, they are still good, but is there any, like, let's say like a tier 3 bank that you can say, okay, you should look out for? Yeah, I know the market is competitive right now, but is there like a tier 3 bank that you say, oh, you could look into it? Yes, definitely it's not financial advice.
Yeah, let Olumide answer. Olumide, he's asking for out of the curve. Is there a bank out there we're not paying attention to that is out of the curve?
exactly. And then
Abdul,
third.
Abdul, you
Okay.
asked him, you're monopolizing. Like, do you want him to let him?
Okay. Mr. Lumide, sorry.
Yeah. So when he meant tier 3 banks, he's talking about
Tier 2.
the
But out of
tier
this,
2.
like when we talk about Sterling, should we have
We
put
talked
Sterling?
about Sterling.
We
Yeah,
talked
we
about.
spoke about Sterling. Yeah, and I mentioned you didn't talk about, but I brought it up. And
Okay.
I spoke about Suleiman. Yeah, I think at the bank.
Is there anything we're missing?
For now,
I
let's
would,
be honest.
I would think Olumide that if I was to ask his question, I would say the fintech boys are those. Is there a fintech app out there that we think we're not in our radar? Is Piggyvest eating banks' lunch? Stuff like that.
No, so can you pick it for? If you want me, if I'm going to pick my favorite fintech companies that I will buy, even without looking at the book, to be honest with you, because there are some stocks that I do like that too. Like without looking at the book, I look at the management team, how they are disciplined, how they position, how the team position themselves in the market. I'll pick Piggyvest. And they're
Why?
being
Why?
consistent. Piggyvest reminds me of the Fola Adiola and Akiroko story. And the reason is because, see, they did not chase after the gleams, the shiny things in the space. And if you look at how they spend money, I've not seen their books, like I said without looking at their books. But look at how they spend money and how they sponsor programs. You see that the bank, the app is a bit conservative. Carol Rice would have been interesting for me, but I really don't know much about them, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't really want to talk about.
But all those guys are all in one bucket. The Piggyvest, the Cowrie Wise, the Bamboo, they're all in that bucket of access to the market in a cheaper, faster, more convenient way.
Yeah.
But is there anyone really that the banks are like, oh my God, what's this guy's doing? Because you see, remember when we had that fraudulent MMM?
I think it's OP.
OP? Okay.
OP and Money Point, yeah. But
okay.
from what I hear, from what I'm hearing,
Pampe, yeah, Pampe, true.
They are not
Pampe,
actually scared. Banks are not, but for me, I think the bigger pie for these banks would be how they tap into the fintech market. Most of these fintechs, like the ones I mentioned, some of these banks will not buy them because you look at their valuation. You don't even understand how they got to that valuation, Yeah, I know valuation sometimes can be subjective, but you don't really understand how, for example, are you telling me Flutter is $3 billion? Like,
so I don't know.
It will be hard to negotiate it. Sorry, let me just say this because this is my area. It will be hard to negotiate because of the people that have already taken positions on those cap tables. These are foreign investors. So if the banks are going to start negotiating with foreign VC firms, it's going to be very tough to, argue that valuation and say, oh, it's low, it's high.
No, I don't know how to argue. If you look at OP, for example, SoftBank is behind OP. SoftBank, that's why I was not surprised that JP Morgan City is behind you. But, what a lot of people are asking me is, what is disposable income of the Nigerian market?
They always make that mistake. They always make that mistake. That's why MTN them came and said, "What's the disposable income of Nigerian market?" Because
Nigerians spend money on data.
No, MTN's case is totally different. I'm sorry,
different.
No, but it's not different. It's not different. Not data. When Orange was to come to Nigeria, they were going to come a long time ago, and someone said the disposable income of Nigeria was below $2 a day, and they didn't come. And MTN came and started to sell and become one of the largest companies in Africa.
MTN came with private equity. And
No.
what they gave them the first
license. You're not getting my point.
MTN, listen.
Hold on. I don't want to argue. Look at the point I'm making.
Let me just give my point. You can retort. I hear
the point I'm making is I'm not arguing about. I'm saying when Orange, the investor, wanted to come to Nigeria, they didn't come because they were hearing this thing about low consumption in Nigeria. MTN also heard the low consumption and they came. I'm not saying anything is not making money or private equity. They came. The same way SoftBank is looking at OP, it's till you come to Nigeria that you will now see your market. Many people look at the paper and it doesn't make any sense. I can give you local examples. That's the point I'm making. I'm not arguing if it's private equity or not. I'm just saying, yeah.
No, I mean my own point, Carl. My own point is that we had a failing government entity that was providing that service. So the government decided that this entity is failing, so we will privatize it. And MTN got the first license. It was MTN that got it. So that there's politics involved in that.
Didn't get the first
whole
license.
Thing. Beyond just, I don't think Orange. I don't
MTN,
think Orange.
MTN didn't get the first
If they were
license.
fully committed, they would have come to lobby the government.
No, you're not listening, Ben. MTN didn't get the first license. Before that MTN auction, there was an auction by Abacha to bring in a telecom person. That failed. Then they went and marketed to Orange to come to Nigeria. And the guy famously said Nigerians they are very smart. He was trying to be derogatory. The Nigerians are very, very smart and they can take money off you. He was derogatory, saying that it's all fraud. Do you know that in MTN in South Africa, hold on, Ben, just hold on.
I won't invest in the military.
Okay. In South Africa, they did not believe MTN's profits in Nigeria until it was reported in MTN's reports in South Africa. They didn't believe that you could make money in Nigeria to that level. Nigerians were eating up MTN. So anyone that just sits there and says, this country, there's a black economy that's not measured.
Look at what I'm saying. I totally agree with what you're saying with MTN. You're totally on point. But this is what you're saying. You look at the size of the Nigerian financial technology services, and you look at the valuations of these companies, and you look at their margins, and you look at the upsides, and you look at the outlook. It's very hard for you to put your money, but OP has changed that. You're right. Like, OP is a success story. 14 million users, market valuation at least $4 billion. SoftBank will make a buck from it, and a lot of Nigerians are interested. So I totally agree with you.
There's a company doing telecom in North Korea, right? There's other company that doing that guy. He has a cell phone company in North Korea. He's always going to all this. Let me try to Google his name. He's always going to all these risky nations to do business, and he makes a lot of money. He's Egyptian. I'm going to get his name for you. That's what he does. He's Egyptian. He goes to these companies. It's in North Korea. I think it was in Nigeria. He goes to all these places and he invests where nobody will go to, and he cleans out. Who will go to North Korea?
Let me ask you, Kalu, if you're an investor, would you invest in a military regime? Especially a military regime that you see successive changes.
The largest investment as at that time by an American company was done in Nigeria, the LLNG company, Kellogg's, the LLNG, who built it? Kellogg's, then Schlumberger. Americans, they built it under Abacha. So in the military, all they want is guarantees, and the military even gives them better guarantees than the civilians. The military will not sort of renege. If you go to the military, they will give you ask a question. I don't want you to. You go back and forth and you interrupt the flow. If you go to not politics, look around the world. How was Indonesia? Was it not the military guy when they built everything they built there? Look, come to Nigeria. List the top 10 infrastructure projects in Nigeria. Tell me what year they were built. When did we build our refineries? When did we build our airports? Lagos-Ibadan Road, not built, not renovated. When was Lagos-Ibadan built? When did we build the universities? Top 10 infrastructure. Who built Abuja? Under civilian or military? Go around the world. Just go around the world. When the Cairo Dam, who built it? When was it built? Military or civilian? So
I
thanks guys. No one speaks. So we've had a fantastic session. Let's call today, guys. We're going to be here next week. Next week also I'm going to bring again on that stockbroking firm to come and talk around the same topics, but we're going to broaden it. Do Q1 review of Nigeria, see where we should invest, see where we should not invest, and see where the smart money is going to. So please be with us again next week, where we can also interrogate this personal finance, investment in the economy. Thank you all for watching. YouTube folks, I see you guys. Yeah, I've answered most of your questions on here. So thanks also for hanging out there. This stuff is recorded on the podcast and on YouTube, so you can always go back and listen at your leisure and see most of what Olumide has said, and of course, you see how you can implement. It's not enough to just listen every week, right? You want to take what you hear and go out and implement. So thank you, Abdulaziz, for hearing and again implementing. You have to start small. Don't make the excuse to say, I don't make money. If you can buy data, you can invest. Even if it's get those apps, all those bamboo apps, get them, put money, little money in, start small. You are building the discipline first before you build the investing. If you have the discipline not to spend more and to put aside to invest, it's more powerful than that return. Olumide, any closing words from you?
Yeah, stay invested.
Stay invested.
Nigerian stock market.
Always be
You could say
investing.
it's trading at a premium, but I think I'm bullish about the Nigerian people.
Was it Tosi? Tosi said it to be a bullish year this year, Abi. Tosi was saying they should said it to be a bullish year. Okay.
And I think look at it that investors have made the fastest 56 trillion naira in history.
In Nigeria?
History. Yes, in Nigeria history. Within 4 months, the market made 56 trillion. We started the year with about less than 100 trillion. It's even more than 56 trillion because the market cap is about 156. So, yeah, investors have made more than 56 trillion, the fastest ever in Nigerian history. For those that don't have money, don't feel bad. The knowledge is powerful. You always get your opportunity, and you could also apply it to whatever you do.
Perfect.
For some of us, it's not just even investing in the market, writing, analysis, financial discipline, budget, savings, how to allocate capital, all those things. So you don't really have to put money to make a living in the stock market. You can learn how successful people manage their resources, follow the right people, and be positive. Have a great week.
Fantastic, Olumide. Thank you so much. Guys, I'll see you here next week when we're talking again on a topic on money, finance, and of course, personal investing. Hang tight, guys. It's going to be a wonderful week. You guys go out and make money. We're hearing news of some back and forth with Iran and the US. We talk about it because that's an economic story, not a war story. Whatever happens in that war has a direct effect on inflation, on the stock market, and the GDP. So we watch that news and we bring it to you because that's the biggest. If you look at this year, for the first time, I believe, Olumide, US stocks have now overtaken emerging market stocks. For the last 2 years, emerging market stocks have been beating US stocks. Now, US stocks, VTI, just beat emerging market stocks. And it's driven by this higher cost in emerging markets and, again, higher returns in tech in America. So watch these things. What happens in the world matters. It affects you in Nigeria because we're all connected now. All right, folks, thank you so much. I'll see you guys next week. Have a fantastic day and bye.